and today, I'm back on the Madeline Pendleton situation, but I'm thinking this might be the last video I do on it for now, unless something else just happens generally. But the reason being, it's just the conversation kind of came back up again, where I felt like I've seen people gaslight Kelp in Kelp's comments, so he made some posts about that, addressing some of that commentary. And then also his friend Cat on the Beach posted the full redacted version of the Sedex unethical trade report for tunnel vision, apparently. And then I figure, since I've been kind of reacting to, even though like I shared a little bit from what I interpreted of Kelp's side regarding the panic situation initially, overall, I've mostly just been reading and reacting to the messages that Madeline sent, and the tweets was like the main time, the majority of the time that I spent speaking about it outside of speaking on my issues with communism. And so, if you want to know more about why I just feel like communists are colonizers, you can check out my other work that I've talked about it more extensively. But I try to write out 4 highlights to summarize that. So, number one, um, I want to take into consideration landback, because it's all about going from private to public ownership, but it's still colonial because you're talking about from a private ownership as an entity to the public. However, you're just giving more ownership and control to a colonial mindset, colonial structure, colonizers in that regard. You're not helping with tribal sovereignty. It doesn't respect tribal sovereignty. We need to be focused on moving the means of production not to other colonizers, but to specifically indigenous tribes, in my opinion. Um, and then the secondly, fucking production based economy. When we're assigning arbitrary value to production, then we're going to have to work to earn. And the same people are going to be existing in place as well. And the policy isn't going to change the person in terms of who owns it and who is actually in control of things, right? And who's managing everything. Because even if they decide with policy, we're going to change the ownership and to everybody, and we're going to change the everybody makes the same amount of money. 2 things: one, that's not going to happen without violence, and I've already addressed, if we're going to do a revolution, I really believe more in a land back statement of ownership rather than the colonial concept ownership. And then two, on to, part two of two, in terms of, like, making the same amount of money and that being assigned to the production of work. Like, if you're disabled and you're not able to work, then you're still not able to earn under this concept. And it still requires you to be working and to produce in order to earn. So you're still going to have a lot of the same issues and social issues that we have under capitalism with communism. And it also doesn't address reparations or equity in terms of the past, retroactive shit. So you're still gonna have the income disparity at play. Um, Three, the ideology. I believe Karl Marx and Engles were racist fucks and anti-Semitic as shit, and I also think I can argue ableism too. And the sources for that are linked in the description of this video, and we'll go over those sources again later in this live stream. We'll go over 2 of them. I've covered 3 in general, so I think I covered all 3 in the afternoon kaboom video I did on all of this, and the one after that I covered 2 of them, and then we're here now, I think. Um, And then 4, kind of touches on number 2 again. Colonial, it's going to be pushing maintaining colonialism over decolonizing, because we are pushing Eurocentric colonial narratives over indigenous people instead of allowing for tribal sovereignty. And we're pushing a system in which discriminates and oppresses people, instead of for liberation. You know what I'm saying? Or equality or equity, right? So yeah, those are the reasons I don't like communism, and I also hate capitalism. So just so people are like, oh, if you don't like communism, that means you like capitalism. How about neither? How about they both suck? How about I don't believe in assigning arbitrary value to labor? Um, it's just like, we live under these constructs, so it's either like live or die, right? So, right. So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to roll my intro. And then what we'll do after that is we're going to first check out some of the comments left to Kelp and just why they annoy me. And then after that, we're going to check out the Sedex ethical trade audit report. Oh, and also, I told Kelp about how I think it was, I can't remember if it was in my last live stream or the one before. It might have been the afternoon, could be one too. But in one of the live streams I did on this, we looked into how when I went into Madeline's source code and clicked Control F and typed in my dropshipper print on demand, we found that it installed on Madeline's store. So I'll show you that again. We'll review that, recap that. And then, yeah, we'll address some additional commentary, and then I figured we could just do a little reaction to Madeline. I've been critiquing Madeline, so we could just let you see directly from Madeline's words herself. And then it's at that point throughout that process, I'll also show you those sources I was talking about on the racism and antisemitism and what I believe is also ableism, and why I don't like Karl Marx or Engles and all of that too. So we'll go through all of this. Yeah, so all right, let's do this fucking bitch. Hi, my name is Lexi, aka Deaf Child. I'm born deaf, hard of hearing. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. My team was one of the top teams between 2020 and 2024 in New Orleans and Louisiana. I began doing business as Deaf Child in 2013, marketing 2011, and sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales, and I have my Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Okay, so first up, we've got Kelp here. And just to put into context again where this all originally came from, the pants situation. Are the pants here? Or do I have to go back down? Let's see. I'm sorry. I should have pulled this up. Let's pull this up. Where are they? My bad. I'll timestamp this shit. I actually feel like I forgot to timestamp something I said I was going to timestamp in my last video, and I don't even want to watch the whole thing to figure out what the fuck I was going to timestamp, and a transcript hasn't generated yet. Okay, here we go. So, why aren't you working? Okay, these are the pants in question here. Now, and then we're going to talk about this later. So the pants in question are held together by safety pins, but the safety pins aren't glued together or fastened together in any way, shape, or form as to not come undone, which is actually pretty dangerous. Like typically, if you're going to use safety pin in clothing and it's not to be temporary, but it's to be permanent, there are typically either better safety pins you can get than what was put on here, that will actually like kind of like diaper pens where they have these safety mechanisms that make it better for you, and you don't get stabbed instead of the cheaper ones. And then there's also like ways to keep them from opening altogether with ways, to like glue them and stuff like that, or different things to put onto it. So like fastens or whatever the fucking words are. I don't know. But yeah, like so these are the pants in question here. So, and they're cut into, I think it's 3 parts. They might be 4 parts, but I think it's 3. And each part is held together by safety pins, and it's like at least 10, maybe, I think it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, between 8 and 10 safety pins holding each like section together. So it's a lot to of that's a lot to hurt yourself with, and it's like one little paper cut or poke every now and then. It's like, okay, that's annoying, but you can get over it. But when it's like this much, that's overstimulating. That's dangerous. That's like, what the fuck? This isn't a comfortable or viable product, and these pants are like $100 fucking. All right. So one comment, and all my links that we're showing here are already linked in the description of the video. So one comment that Kelp got said, I didn't ask for what I wanted and expected someone whose job it is explicitly not to give me a refund without asking. I would highly recommend touching grass if that doesn't work. Kelp. Okay, so what do you mean didn't ask for what? Kelp wanted the pants. Kelp didn't expect the pants to be unsafe to wear. It is common to have clothing, like safety pins have been, quote, well, I'm sure they've been in style longer than this. I'm just speaking from my context, but I've seen safety pins go in and out of style since at least 2006, right? And so I have like a lot of experience seeing safety pins used in different clothing in person. I don't own anything with safety pins in it at this time, but I used to. But you know what? Um, anyway, so fucking like my thing is there's just so many ways to make these safe that I wouldn't buy these for $100 thinking that they're not gonna be a higher quality. So Kelp, so this person is gaslighting Kelp on that, right? And then it's someone whose job it is explicitly not to give me a refund without asking. So was Madeline not the CEO then? And Madeline was reaching out to offer some sort. The first time Madeline reached out, it was to let them know about the issue of the pants and to see what type of help could be gotten, whether it was a refund or an exchange, right? But then the second time Madeline reached out, Madeline had seen other people get refunds on the pants, and somebody else was posting on Instagram about it, and it's like it turns out other people have gotten refunds on these pants, right? Even Madeline admitted this in the messages, in my opinion. And so fucking Kelp didn't ask for the refund until after Kelp saw other people getting refunds. Kelp's like, if they're getting a refund, why can't I get one, right? Not word for word, but I'm just like summarizing a lot of shit that happened. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth. I'm just trying to summarize what the fuck happened from my interpretation of this reality. All right. And so, yeah, and I believe I covered in the first one that I did on this, what is the role of a CEO and how it is a CEO's role to actually oversee customer service, and whether or not the CEO responds directly themselves, it is the CEO's job to make sure it gets done. And I've owned a business for 13 years, and I feel like a lot of the people who are commenting about this haven't actually had any form of business ownership role or role in an executive level of business. Or if they do, I would be very surprised. And I would be interested to see the performance of that business. I would love to see, what business that is in their analytics so I can look into that. But yeah, fucking, I would be, I really feel like, statistically speaking, most people just don't own a business. So most people, they don't actually know what goes into it. And they think if you're the business owner or the CEO, that means you do nothing, because they think all business owners are like the Jeff Bezos of the world. But that's far from the truth. What's the reality is the 1% control most of the resources, right? And so the biggest CEOs and business owners are the ones who we think of when we think of shitty business, because they're who's controlling our fucking lives. But most businesses are not like that. Most businesses, well, I mean, I guess if you think of like how um, most society is unethical, then that's a different story. So I guess, there is something there in terms of when we look at the statistics of disparity, from racial disparity, income disparity, and all of that. Um, However, it's all of that is oftentimes the individuals supporting the ideologies that their 1% are swinging them towards, right? Um, for example, I don't, why are people such, like, why do people, like, really just want to suck Jeff Bezos' dick so bad? I don't get it. But you meet people and they act like this guy has, like, literally just graced their lives by existing. And I'm just like, I really hope that type of idolization for celebrities never finds me. Um, yeah. But that's what I'm seeing with Madeline Pendleton. The same type of way people idolize Jeff Bezos, they idolize Madeline Pendleton. And the same way capitalists excuse Jeff Bezos, I feel the communists excuse Madeline Pendleton. It's interesting to me. It's just like parallels of colonialism throughout communism and capitalism. Just compare Jeff Bezos and Madeline Pendleton. Um, and the comments though, it's just hilarious. So, what is their experience as a CEO or business owner? How the fuck do you know what a CEO does? Anyway, um, and the same person commented, and this is the same person, two different comments saying, not a single thing in any of these messages that prove anything the liberals have been saying. OP was being a Karen and Madeline handled it poorly. Neither of them were right, but it's not relevant. And here's another thing, and I didn't realize this when before, because obviously I didn't know. I'm constantly learning shit that I'm saying is not correct to say. So I understand on a certain journey, because shit gets normalized around you, you don't know what you, if you spend all day trying to figure out where every single fucking word you hear came from, you're never going to be able to function. Your mind is going to break. But so it's not about like not, it's okay to not know better when it comes to using words that aren't meant for your community. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm that's the whole journey of decolonizing. I'm constantly being taught that shit I said is wrong to say. Um, but where this is an example here where this person says OP was being a Karen. When anytime I see a white person saying that, it bothers me, because that is a term that was explicitly originally used by primarily people who are black, I believe. And I believe this is particularly, um, to refer to white people causing harm, to identify and signal this is a racist person. So we need to, like, there's this like a certain level where now white people go use that all like it's about like it's I'm not the person to be speaking on this. I realize this. So I'm gonna stop speaking on it. But I'm just saying this is another thing here where um no wonder like this person doesn't understand how the messages like show the problematic nature of Madeline. Like, are we not reading the same messages? Okay, and for context, I did a live stream on all of this. Hold up. Let me pull that up. I did a live stream where we literally fucking watched all of the we literally, the first live stream I did on this, actually.
I don't know.
Oops, my bad, it autoplayed. Was this the first one? Yeah, this is the first one. My first live stream that I did on all of this shit, fucking, I had 35 screenshots in here. And so let's just, and then let's see here. Let's just pull up one. Then it says, by our customer service person. So the very first thing that Madeline says is you had complaining to the manager vibes and you were trying to get the customer service person in trouble with me. That never fucking happened. Neither of those things ever fucking happened. Things like that. Like the things that Madeline was saying, like go through, read all of this. Madeline was extremely problematic. And it's so, and then this is left on Kelp's post. And here's another thing. Like the liberals have been saying, I reject the notion, I reject any colonial label. I don't like being called a liberal. I don't like being called progressive. I don't like being called conservative. I don't like being called communist, capitalist, none of that. All of that is colonial. Anyone that goes by any of those identities, I just associate as a colonizer. You know what I'm saying? I really prefer to stick to like my own cultural perspective, ancestry, and background when it comes to political beliefs. And I think sticking to like a landback ideology is better. And just referring to tribal sovereignty instead. But because all of this other shit, it's like it's just upholding colonialism. It's two wings of the same bird. Okay, I'm done with it. Let's kill that fucking bird. Fuck that bird. Anyway, I flipped the bird. But fucking, so it's just also such a weird comment to leave on Kelp's post about the pants. Like, what the fuck? And Kelp actually identifies as a communist, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, sorry I talk so much shit about communists, Kelp. I don't mean it about you, but you can see why I don't like them, right? Fucking, and, like, and what I mean by that is, I know a lot of people who identify as communists or socialists or progressives or whatever, they didn't actually look into the ideology, so they don't actually know it's racist and ableist and it's anti-Semitic. Like when I go, anytime I show most people who identify as communist or socialist these sources that I've been showing in these streams, they're like, oh, fuck that. And then they start speaking against Marx, every time. Except for the racist ones. It's always the white, not all white people, but it's always like these random white people who like wear their fucking combat boots that want to kind of like double down on, there's nothing racist about that. You didn't understand the times. Anyway, fucking, but that's just, tit for tat. We all have our own opinions. You just know how I feel. But most people, and I think Kelp is going to lean into the most people I talk to about this category, where most of them, they just literally didn't fucking know. And they were just regurgitating the information that's been most accessible to them. Because most communists don't sit there and say, hey, by the way, here's the racist shit about this ideology. Here's the anti-Semitic shit about this ideology. They just try to lull you in with the razzle-dazzle stuff, and don't look at all that. Don't look at all that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what most, like, political ideologies, that's what they mostly all do. You know what I mean? But yeah, but where it said, like, OP was being a Karen, OP was, like, okay, I already told you why I don't like the commentary of the whole Karen situation, that specific term, but then I also don't like just any form of gaslighting Kelp or Sailor Seaweed about why Kelp had an issue with these pants, I just kind of cannot stand for, because typically I'm like, you know what, you ain't gotta agree with me on shit. We're all human beings, blah, blah, blah. Is like how I go at it. Like, I approved the comment in my last comment review section where this, or my good friend Mrs. Jones was like, you are wrong about the wedding dress situation. And I approved that shit because I'm like, yeah, bitch, feel what you feel. It's not a bitch, not a bitch, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, feel what you feel. But, with the whole panda situation, I'm just gonna really just not agree with you and be like, fuck you this time around if you are against the concept of, if I'm paying $100 for pants like these and they're stabbing me in my coochie, I'm getting my fucking money back. Like, and if you're arguing with me about this, just don't even talk to me. We're not gonna get along. No, but this, well, you know what? This is totally connected to the wedding dress, Rayleigh's wedding dress situation, though, because I know I talk a lot of shit about how I believe it's stolen or whatever, but I do absolutely believe she should have gotten a refund. So, for example, if if Kelp had taken these pants without paying for them in full, and Madeline had sent them to her, and Kelp was, you know, unhappy with the pants, wanting a refund, but didn't have to pay for all of it, I would have the same opinion, you know. But it's the, like, it's the fact, like, it's, so yeah, but it's the way that she paid the Kelp. Did I just misgender Kelp? Did I just call Kelp she? I apologize, Kelp. Kelp is he. Um, Kelp paid for the fucking thing. I'm gonna go check. God, that's not funny. I'm not laughing that I'm double check. I'm not laughing that I'm double checking after to make sure I got the pronoun right, because it's not funny to, like, it's not a joke about getting someone's pronouns right. For me though, it's just like, I feel like I myself am a joke who cannot get pronouns right. Does that make sense? I don't think the pronouns are the butt of the joke. I think I am. Okay, I don't know if that was a good or bad thing to say though, or, you know, react, or my, if that's like my initial reaction is good or bad. But anyway, all right. So yeah, and these videos are linked in the description of the video if you want to go watch the whole thing. Um, Now, another person had said on the uh, previously we covered a redacted version of the Sedex members ethical trade audit report. Well, this is also redacted, and it's provided by Cat on the Beach. So from Cat on TikTok or whatever. And so previously we covered the shorter version of this. And on that video of Cats, someone had commented, "There's nothing you can make me say to make me hate Madeline." Like, yeah, like everyone, she's wrong about some things, but overall she's very well spoken and very well researched. Well, I don't really agree that she's well spoken or well researched. The reason I don't think she's well spoken is based on the way that she treated Kelp. The reason I don't, and the way that, not only the way that she treated Kelp, but the way that she treats a lot of other people. And it's not to say that you can't be mad or have feelings and then all of a sudden you're not well spoken. But for me, when you call someone well spoken, that means that they have an ability to efficiently and clearly articulate their ideas. I would not call myself well spoken. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying it to try to insult her. I'm just saying it as a fact. I don't think I'm well spoken. I don't think Madeline is either. I don't think that, I think Madeline is impulsive. I think Madeline is passionate. I don't think that makes her well spoken, if that makes sense. And I wouldn't agree that she's well researched. And here's why. I'm giving Madeline the benefit of the doubt by saying I don't think she's well researched. Because for me, either Madeline hasn't studied this information before and doesn't know better, which explains why she's making the unethical mistakes she's making, or she does know better and she's doing unethical things anyway, and she just is knowingly being harmful. And we'll go into that a little bit more. First of all, you can check that first video I did on all of this, where I do go into, I believe it was this one. Oh no, it was not the first video. Oh no, it was. So in this first video, it's time stamped at the 32-minute mark. I go into Madeline's role as a CEO and what does a CEO do. You can go check that part out for that discussion there. And then when it comes to like, if Madeline had experience in business, and again, I don't know Madeline's work history outside of and prior to television, beyond TikTok, and the book. I forgot the title of it, but something about a t-shirt, surviving capitalism or whatever. Fucking, so, or was that the book or was that something else? I don't know. And then there was something about Hold Me, was that a book too? I don't know. But yeah, so I don't know much about Madeline's overall work history outside of the tweets that I saw Madeline post, and the messages. So what I'm judging Madeline on is this one specific situation. I have mentioned the context of this one situation in the middle of, as the same time this came out again, it was through a surging trend of where Madeline Pendleton was caught into another controversy. And that controversy had to do with the concept of anti-blackness, which I don't feel is my place to particularly speak on. So I've discussed it in terms of acknowledging that this is the context of this conversation. And a lot of that, and the reason it's relevant is because I feel that part of what Madeline does, in my opinion, is lump a lot of things together. And I understand how everything can be connected, because I can do the same thing too, where for me it's all connected. So when I was, for example, being discriminated against, in terms of like being denied accommodations in a particular situation, for my deafness, that then turned into me having a panic attack and somatic flashbacks and my anxiety and mental health and other disabilities. And so I go from this and to this, and then this is also happening on, and like when it's considered Indigenous Day. And so for me, and then throughout that also, I'm being touched without my consent, which then impacts triggering my SA. So for me, no one else understands why would your anxiety, deafness, sexual assault, or the fact that it's Indigenous Peoples Day be connected. But for me, it's all connected because it's my lived experience, right? So I get that on a certain level, like things can be connected for you in a way that they are really not connected for others. But where I'm struggling here with the whole Madeline concept and this whole Madeline situation, I don't understand how Madeline supports and advocates and promotes the whole communism narrative, given the context of what Engles and Karl Marx discuss. And even though the specific research and sources I have are on Karl Marx specific wording, they're in his letters to Engles, who we know maintained that relationship. And so, like I was saying before, birds of a feather flock together. And so it's just like, how are you going to co-sign certain things being said, right? And Madeline fucking, I feel, loses the plot on certain situations where maybe for Madeline it is like me where things are connected for Madeline in which other people don't see that connection because it's not our lived experience. So for Madeline, it's all connected. However, that's what makes me not a good, not well spoken, you know, because I won't be able to always articulate the way things are connected for me. Maybe I will later, but not necessarily in the moment. I have to process it. Um, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's what also makes Madeline not well spoken because Madeline could either be like me, where I'm trying to give Madeline the benefit of the doubt and assume that perhaps Madeline is just connecting things that we don't understand why it's connected to her. But the way it comes off to me and why I don't like it is it looks like you're trying to intentionally lose the plot because sometimes it seems like you're trying to steer the conversation away from the actual issue, and possibly be doing so by, mixing it in with other situations that, while may be impacting you, aren't what's happening with this specific person who's trying to have a different conversation with you. You know what I'm saying? Um, that's all. You know what I mean? Sorry it took me so long to get there. Long and winding road. But yeah, fucking and Raquel had said the racism, ableism, fat phobia, and constant lying isn't enough, so what is? And the fat phobia would be a nice a lot of people were like basically kind of like calling Kelp fat. And Madeline was like kind of, in my opinion, co-signing it in the same way, in my opinion, that Engles co-signs Karl Marx's racism. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we'll get to that in Two More Shakes of a Lamb's Tail, or link in the description of this video. You can go check that out. Um, but yeah, fucking, and also, you should always be open to critiquing people. You should definitely be open to critiquing me. There should be things that I can do to make you hate me. Because why would you want to follow me no matter what I do to you? I don't understand that logic. I understand when people are sometimes when people are saying there's nothing you can make me do to make me hate, nothing they can say to make me hate you or whatever. They're not being literal. They're just trying to convey that they care, they have so much, they're such a fan of this person, or they have so much passion about this thing that there's, that's what they're, it's just meant to be like a metaphor. But what the thing about turning the idea of idolizing someone into a metaphor or an expression that I don't like is it can normalize a lifestyle where people joke about the idea of someone being above them because that's how they kind of actually feel. Because typically, in my opinion, jokes typically are rooted in some form of truth. Sometimes the joke could be that this would never happen, and that's what makes it funny, is that it's unlikely to ever happen. Um, so I get that's where people are going with it. So I know I'm like, just because I'm questioning it doesn't mean I don't fucking understand it or think that the concept couldn't be funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that. But on another level, though, it's one thing to say that in a lighthearted way, um, casually, versus to say it as a response to someone having a valid issue about someone being unethical. That's where I have this issue. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, fucking, I might do a whole nother live where um, I go through the messages and the tweets, and I just show you with timestamps the problematic ones, because not everything Madeline said was wrong or bad. A lot of it was fine. Some of it was fucking weird, but it wasn't necessarily unethical. But I think I kind of want to go through and show you the particular mind fucks for me, and where I'm like, ugh, because there's so much of it that happened that it's a lot to process, you know? All right. Well, Madeline commented to Kelp saying it's not a conspiracy, it's a small business. And if you watch Kelp's content, Kelp never accuses anything of being a conspiracy. Like, what the fuck? Kelp just discusses issues Kelp has and discusses the existence of the unethical report being there and what was in the unethical report. Kelp, like literally, what doesn't literally, in my opinion, doesn't say anything that Kelp doesn't have some form of evidence to show for it, in my opinion. And that is actually could be taken as a fact, right? Like anything else Kelp says, literally, like that's an opinion. You have the right to an opinion, right? And so you don't have to like I can sit there and say, I think this is a silly hat, and I don't need to go pull up sources for why I think this is a silly hat because it's legal for me to say I think a hat is silly, right? I don't think the hat is silly. I'm just trying to make an example. My bad. Maybe that was a bad one. I was just like the first. That was like I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my fucking head though. But like I was just like trying to say like you can have an opinion about something and you don't fucking need to prove it. So like there's no conspiracy here. Um, And we've already gone over all of the screenshots and the tweets and the report. That's what Kelp showed and the pants. Kelp, this is what Kelp has showed and talked about. And so that's where I say I believe Madeline is gaslighting, or trying to belittle or demean or make Kelp think that like Kelp doesn't understand how things should be or something. When in reality, in my opinion, it's somebody who was treating a customer like shit. Now, Kelp did eventually get a refund, but it took a long time to get it, and it took all of this to get that refund. Before this, Kelp was not getting response from customer service for a long time. Um, and that's how it all rose. I'll have to go look into the exact timing, but I just know because you just go watch all of the videos. This was a multi-day affair. Anyway, so Cat on the Beach, Kelp's friend, I have to remember to post their profiles up in this video description, posted another version of the Sedex tunnel vision report, a redacted copy. So I linked the copy that Kelp's friend posted in the description of this video. So we already went through the redacted report. We went through and we read what I believe are basically the main segments that you're going to get out of it, the details that actually gave us some insight into some things we wouldn't have known and all of that. So I don't feel the need to necessarily read it all again. But what I am doing right now is just scrolling through it so you can pause to see it if you would like, if you're able to on your device. Um, Maybe I should have zoomed in, but it's linked in the description of this video for a time. We'll see how long it's available. But yeah, so the whole fucking concept, if you didn't watch it already though, of the redacted report was an audit to see how ethical the business is. And you should go watch my other coverage on it in order to see what those details were specifically because I read it then. But from what I remember, basically, they were working overtime between 48 hours a week. And there was issues with violations of some local laws, but I can't remember off the top of my head which particularly those laws were. But um, yeah. So um, basically, there was some issues with the fact that it wasn't meeting some of the standards to be compliant. So they were, for example, they were some base code issues and training. Um, for example, so there's a lot of the non-compliance things. They're simple things, but it's just the things that add up. Um, there's um okay. I couldn't tell if that was showing something, so I didn't want to say it, so I didn't. But yeah, fucking it doesn't look like there is much here. I'm gonna timestamp out this part. I'm over here like I remember there were some other issues, but I can't remember off the top of my head what those issues were. So here there are some things against compliance. So basically it was saying that there was insufficient social insurance coverage, um, unemployment insurance, injury insurance, medical insurance, and maternity insurance. So yeah, that was also. And then there was a commercial accident insurance for 11 of the 61 employees. So yeah. So there are certain things, if you go through here, you'll find that there are reasons for it to not be at standard. Like they just work a lot of hours. And theoretically, 48 average hours a week, it's still not the best life. In terms of like 40-hour work weeks are already rough enough. I've definitely seen worse. I feel like it wouldn't be that big of an issue to call out if, or for the fact that, but it's just more like it wouldn't be that big of an issue to call out if it weren't for, in my opinion, I feel like she can mislead people. Sometimes when she talks about the working conditions of her company, I think perhaps she may be just referring to her own physical office location in California and not necessarily to her suppliers or through everything that she's sourcing her products through or getting everything made through. But where I think that's misleading is, people think that people are getting treated one way, but you're not being clear as to that, then it could be perceived as, like it's not being fully transparent. I feel like that could be an issue. So yeah, fucking I get that this is the boring stuff. So that's why I'm not taking the time to read all of these 67 pages right now. But thank you for letting me scroll through that with you. So, moving on. I had also told I don't know if you remember, like, in that one video we did, I forgot which video that was. Oh, well. Oh. I had to point to that one later. But, fucking, I told Kelp about Printful being on the website. So, I said if you go to her site on desktop, right click, hit view page source, type in Printful, then you can see she has Printful. Oh, I forgot to tell her to click. God damn it. I forgot to tell him to click Control F um, to type in Printful, but that's fine. And you can see that they have Printful, print on demand drop shipping installed. And there's nothing theoretically wrong with print on demand drop shipping in terms of it's all depends on the supplier for what type of quality you're going to get. So just because it's print on demand drop shipping doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It's your quality is going to be supplier by supplier, but I use Printful. But it's the when you advertise your offer as being basically made from scratch and it's print on demand instead, I do feel that's a bit misleading. Um, so yeah. In this video here, Kelp shows a screenshot of Kelp viewing the page source and typing in Control F and then typing in Printful and finding it in the page source. And we also covered this in my live stream previously as well. So yeah, and you can check that. Link the playlist is in the description of the video. So yeah, and so then um Kelp posted yesterday. Was this today or yesterday? No, this is earlier today. Um, Kelp posted that now Kelp is blocked by Madeline Pendleton, which I think is funny as fuck. Um, but yeah, someone saying the critiques of Madeline at this point are so far off the point. This feels really irrelevant stuff compared to the reason people were initially angry at her. So here's the thing, like, so where people are like, yeah, this is Madeline being bad as a CEO, being having doing unethical business as a CEO is not being a valid critique, is just gaslighting and dismissive in my opinion. If this weren't Madeline and if it was any other person, if it was Walmart and you were talking about how you, or not even Walmart, because they would actually fucking refund you. I mean, I hate Walmart, but that, you know what? It's never been hard to get a refund from them. Fucking, let's say JC Penn, it's not hard to get one from them either, fuck it, but whatever. For the hot topic, okay, let's say that fucking Hot Topic's in again and these pants were from Hot Topic. I don't think anyone would be like fucking doubting whether or not there should be a fucking refund, in my opinion. Okay? Fucking, but you know what? They would have had way better quality safety pins if they were from Hot Topic. I've never seen bad safety pins. Have y'all? Did I just not pay attention? But anyway. Um, and then people are saying it's like being upset with her for what she does as a business is irrelevant compared to the reason people were initially angry at her. Which time though? Madeline gets canceled at least once a year. So being like it's irrelevant to be mad at Madeline for unethical business because she gets canceled once a year is just really like kind of like normalizing Madeline being unethical in my opinion. Um, and that's just me. And again, if you think that it's okay for somebody who, when you've given them money to make you something, and they send you something that is not something that you can actually fucking wear, and so you go decide, be like, okay, what can we do about this? However, other people are getting refunds and you can't even get a response from customer service in regards to solving it. And so you take it to social media like one does to complain about it. Everybody acts like there's something wrong with you. Because the CEO going off on Kelp this way and acting like it's not the CEO's job to be responsible for the business is just fucking wild to me. And everybody's just like, yeah, no, the CEO shouldn't have to do anything for the business. Like, what? Y'all are fucking wild to me, bootlickers. That's why people like think, it's fine to be like Jeff Bezos, in my opinion. But anyway, Kelp posted again. Oh, no, did Kelp post again? I thought Kelp posted again. Oh, okay, I missed it. Oh, okay, no, that was it. No, I'm out of it. My bad. Alrighty, so next up, I figured because I'm talking about her, let's just hear straight from the horse's mouth. So now we're gonna react to Madeline herself. So first, the reason I wanted to react to this one, I just thought it was so fucking funny that someone said, give us factory names for your manufacturers. Now, if we go to Tunnel Vision, I know who some of her manufacturers are. So this is what I had told, and we go to view page source. So this is the Tunnel Vision code. Now we're going to type in Printful. So Printful is installed. So when we go to Printful suppliers, let's look at those. You have different suppliers that you can choose from. So we'll go to the product catalog. Let's go by brand. So some of the suppliers that Madeline has includes Adidas, AS Color, Atlantis, Bag Base, Beachfield Hats, Bella Canvas, Big Accessories, Champion, Columbia, Comfort Colors, Cotton Heritage, District, E-Conscious, FlexFit, Gildan, Independent Trading Co. Jerseys, LAT Apparel, Liberty Bags, Next Level Apparel, AutoCut, Port Authority, Rabbit Skins, SOL, Sport Tech, Sportsman, Shakaware, Stanley Stella, Threadfast, Apparel, Toltecs, Under Armour, and Kung. So yeah, and then didn't they have Camelback too? I wonder why that's not on here, or is that like just a one item thing? But anyway, so you can shop. These are some of her suppliers. If she is using the Printful, she has the extension on here. So if she is using the Printful supplier, that's what some of them are. All of these suppliers are Sedex trade audited and all of that good shit. So everything that she's saying to market herself about that is actually provided. So is it in the branding? Or help? Let's see. I forget where it is. Okay, I found it. So they have these like different statements for their ethical supply chain. And how they talk about their supplier code of conduct and all of that. And then I'm pretty sure that they have, if I'm not mistaken, but I can't remember where it is, they have this like place where they have like a template for anybody who is sustainability and responsibility. So they have free downloadable templates here for the sustainability statement. And okay, so let's look at the sustainability statement. So right here it says, we sell Raghouse sourced vintage clothing and our own house brand designs, all made sweatshop free in small batch runs. Vintage clothes and own house brand design. So print on demand could have been their house brand designs. Legally made sweatshop free in small batch runs, because when you print on demand, it's not made unless you order it. But yeah, fucking so that's where I'm thinking when you look at here, it's saying like it's talking about as blank works with on-demand suppliers, you only produce items we get an order for, avoid textile waste from overproduction, high quality, and all of this stuff. And it has like a statement about made on demand, planet, and all of this shit, in-house facilities, all of this stuff, right? Okay, so let's go to about us. And here we go. It's saying uh, clothes are either vintage or own house brand original designs. House brand is made in either all of these environments. So this wording is all in here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just letting y'all know. I think that there is a possibility it could be Sedex. I mean, not Sedex. It could be Printful. So that's why I think she is using Printful. Um, a lot of the wording she's using to advertise herself is shit that you see when you're working with Printful in their marketing and in their site. And I use Printful myself. And there's nothing wrong with using it, but it's just about being upfront about it. Um, and here's another thing where she's talking about 9 full-time workers and 4 part-time workers. But what about the factory production and all of that? And I get on one level when you do print on demand, that's a different supplier. So technically they're not your workers, right? So maybe that's what it is, where those differences are. So like when Madeline talks about her own company, she's probably talking how she's probably possibly talking about only how these full-time and part-time workers are being treated and not referring to what's happening with the Sedex trade report, in my opinion. But I don't know that for sure. That's just what I'm assuming. And the reason I'm saying that is if Madeline was only talking about these people, then all of her statements about the company culture, those could still be like a valid interpretation of her own perspective, and I'm not negating that, right? But if with that whole work culture mantra, she's referring to also her suppliers, which is what people kind of believe unless you state otherwise, then I think that's where the issue is with not being clear and why it fucking matters to be upfront. Because if you're not upfront, now people perceive you as liable for the whole work culture that they think that you are executing on, unless you tell them different. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but that's just me. Yeah. Fucking. So let's actually react to this thing now. And it does not have captions. So for me, when I click this, like, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but there's this like button with these 3 lines and a music note, and I can turn it on, and these live captions pop up on my screen for me. But for some fucking reason, and it bothers me every time, OBS does not record the captions when it comes up. So I apologize, there will not be more captions here. I might have to pause this in a second. I think my best friend just got home. Excuse me real quick while I scream his name. Sha? No, it's nobody. It's just me screaming. Maybe it was like a branch, just like trees outside my house hitting the roof or some shit. I thought I heard him. I thought I heard like the door open. I feel crazy. Anyway, oh hey, Augusto's here. Augusto Lazo said, the only thing I like about print on demand is they're projecting your products or designs on photos to the market. But then again, the service is too slow. It takes weeks to order and shipping. I think those are valid issues with it. I literally put on my website, like, hey, this shit might take months to arrive, so don't order it unless you're cool with that. Thanks. And it's like not to discourage people from buying from me, it's to let people know what to expect. You know what I mean? So I totally agree. That's definitely a valid criticism. Like, I have that same complaint. The reason I do it is because it's so fucking cheap, you know? Like, yeah, I recommend anybody who doesn't have the upfront funds to get started. It's a good way to go, but yeah, that is a negative impact of it. All right, I'm going to actually mute and let's hit play now on this.
Imperial Boomerang theory. This is a term I've seen a few people using on TikTok over the past few days, and I wanted to do a primer on it for people who might not be familiar with this concept. Imperial Boomerang theory states that whatever an empire does to other countries around the globe is like a testing ground for things that they will then bring back to the imperial core where they are and execute.
And this is why I think it is relevant how Madeline treats Kelp. How Madeline treats Kelp, in my opinion, is a reflection of how Madeline could be treating other people, in my opinion. And part of the messages that I analyzed that Madeline was sending Kelp, Madeline was telling Kelp that all employees have equal responsibility as the CEO. And I find that extremely problematic because that's basically giving them more work that they're not being paid to do, in my opinion. Um, and so the whole, like, I don't think that, like, it's one thing to want to redefine what these roles are and how they function in your own position and your own business, but in my opinion, the reason that there are issues in the business flow now are because if you do that, you have to do it so it works with the constructs of the system that you live under, right? So for example, um, Madeline believes everybody gets paid amount, the same amount of money and works the same amount of hours. However, and that everybody has equal responsibility in the business. The reason this doesn't work though is it then makes it so no single person is actually responsible for the direction of the business. So that way, Madeline doesn't actually have to be responsible for what is the outcome of the result of the business she's producing. So for me, like if I'm doing marketing for somebody and I'm spending their ad budget and I've spent $100. I ran $100 on ads and they have not gotten a single lead. And so then they reach out to me like, hey, dude, we spent $100 on this ad and we haven't gotten a single lead yet. What can we do to fix this? And I go off on them. I'm just like, you're a piece of shit. It's not my fucking job to talk to you about whether or not your money's getting spent. Why the fuck would you think it's okay to talk to me about that? I own a marketing agency. Why would you ask me, the owner of a marketing agency, how the fuck to run your ads? Go talk to somebody else. Would you ever come do marketing from me again? Why or why not? So why do people think it's okay for Madeline to treat somebody who is buying pants from her the same way? I just want to know. I just would like to know for the class. When you own a business, it is literally your job to make sure that the transaction occurs. It may not be your job to actually respond to the customer, but it will be your job to make sure that the item on the to-do list was checked off. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of want to do like another live stream where I redact one of my project management spreadsheets for a client and show you what I mean about that. Where when I say I don't do each of these things, but it's still my job to make sure each thing gets done. You know what I'm saying? So that way I can show you what I mean, because that is the role of a CEO. Yeah. And I understand it's like I don't think, like, I'm not trying to be a bootlicker, like, get back to work and do your job. But I feel like, okay, it's okay if you don't want to do that yourself, but then when you hire someone else to deal with it for you, and then you don't touch it, okay? And that way you can still check it off your to-do list and someone else did it. So say Madeline didn't want to respond to Kelp. Madeline, I don't know her team's name, so Madeline could have hired Billy Bob to go respond to Kelp for Madeline. And then it's done. That's Madeline's job as CEO. That's what a CEO does. A CEO's job is to direct the employees, manage the resources, manage the projects. That's the business owner's role. Or you hire someone to manage it for you. That is your role. And it's like, for me, also, though, I get the concept of redefining a role for yourself in your own business so it works for you, but on another level, too, I get that definitions of words can change over time and semantics change over time, but at the same time, the whole fucking reason there is a word and a definition for it is for communication. So everybody is on the same page to know what we are talking about. So if you're just like, CEO doesn't mean CEO anymore, it just means I'm the designer, but I take credit for what, you know what I mean? Like, if I just decide, like, like, I don't want to be a business owner anymore, so I'm going to not answer any of my clients, and I'm not going to do any of my marketing work. And I decide I'm just going to live stream all day because I would rather be live streaming than working anyway. And so I'm just going to ignore all of that. I'm live streaming now. I'm not working anymore. I'm not making any money. Am I still a business owner? I just want to know. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's just like, on a certain level, yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want, but on another level, words have meaning. The things you do have meaning and definitions for them. And that's my spiral here. It's like, okay, I'm so sorry I'm on that. All right, let's watch this fucking thing. Oh, and then this whole thing where she's like, yeah, like, that's where I'm like, she's talking about how imperialism, imperial settlers or whatever, like, is a reflection for how an imperialist treats one thing, is a reflection for how they treat others. But yet she's not able to recognize that in herself. And even I start to reflect on that on myself, because even if I, in certain situations, know what happened and know why I got in a fight with somebody, even if I'm like, yeah, um, I told that police officer the only good thing about him being a police officer is he might get shot. If somebody doesn't like that I said that, that is totally valid. They're like, I can't believe you would go tell another human being that you hope they get shot. Um, oh, Augusto said they have two jobs, so one fails and has another as backup. Well, that's good. You see, that's smart. Right. Fucking, but yeah, so if somebody doesn't like me because they're like, how dare you tell another human being that you hope they die, basically, like, you know what, valid, because, like, who are you to know who I am? And, like, what I meant by that, or where I'm coming from, or what type of person I am. And if you don't feel safe around that, good for you. Like, go do what makes you feel comfortable, right? And that's valid. Other people, though, they're like, fuck police brutality. They can fuck, you know what I'm saying? Like, other people get how I get there when it comes to the context of the specific debate it was in, which was regarding police brutality and arguing about certain people dying, you know, things like that. Like, so in that context, that's why a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't really give a shit she said that, because of the context of which I said it, right? So I see why people think either or. Some people, that's why they don't fuck with me, and some people, that's why they do. And some people, they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? But so, like, even I am, how I treat one situation other people are going to see that as a reflection of how I would treat other situations and act in accordance to that. And it's not up to me, to determine for them how they feel on that, right? Like, I can only just stick to what I feel. But yeah, so for me, it's just like I get like understanding why you did something. And so even if like you shouldn't just go do this thing, you see where you got yourself to that point, and so you're able to then better manage that type of behavior in the future, right? Or determine whether or not that's a good route to go again in the future. Versus where I don't feel Madeline, I just think it's really funny for me that Madeline, in the same context of this having happened with Kelp, Madeline's making this post too. And it's just like, do you not have self-awareness, in my opinion? You know what I mean? It's like,
execute upon their own citizens. It's sometimes called Foucault's boomerang or the fantastic boomerang, and you might have heard Hannah Arendt talk about it, but neither Foucault nor Hannah Arendt were the ones who coined the term. Examples of the Imperial Boomerang theory happening in real life here in the United States might include the IDF, for example, training the NYPD. While the United States gives military supplies to Israel to continue to enact a genocide and do ethnic cleansing, they in turn take NYPD officers, bring them to Israel, and train them on those same techniques, then send them back to the Imperial Corps.
Okay, so we could also argue that Madeline does a similar thing when she kind of pushes forward this narrative of communism. Communists are colonizers. She's basically encouraging people to support racism, to support antisemitism, to support ableism. And she doesn't seem to see the problem with that. So then for her to be like pushing that narrative, but then over here also speaking about imperialism, is kind of a fucking joke to me.
To enact those practices that they've just learned on New York City civilians. This is an example of the Imperial Boomerang. Another example of this has to do with the militarization of local police stations and police departments. There's a policy that states that decommissioned military equipment goes to our local police stations.
All right, and let's just look at one of these examples. And so first of all here, we'll look at one now and another later. So let's look at in the interest of civilization, Marxist views of race and culture in the 19th century. So here, Karl Marx, on August 7th, 1866, he was writing a letter to Friedrich Engels and Ludwig Kugelmann. And he was talking about this Tremo book by this, who I feel like he's probably a eugenicist. That's just me. So this is what Karl Marx is talking about. He said, as he indicates, the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one. Okay. I want you to marinate on that. Someone who puts the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one. Karl Marx, that's who communism is founded by. This is the racism, part of the racism here. You know what I'm saying? So these are people who believe that black people are less than. And that's the narrative in which Madeline's audience pushes. And we'll get to that in just a second. So when she's pushing that while making a video about imperialism, it's just like, the call is coming from inside the house, Madeline. Okay? Yeah.
This has led to, obviously, an increasing militarization of the police. This is why the LAPD, for example, has a tank. Tanks are used when we fight our imperial wars abroad, and then that same militaristic technology is used back in the United States on citizens in Los Angeles. If I'm remembering correctly, it might actually have been the Los Angeles School Department who ended up with the tank in the end. That was correct. The Los Angeles School District has a tank. Yeah. Built for war in Iraq. This is yet another example of Imperial Boomerang theory in action. Similarly, the United States has a history of relying heavily upon propaganda and disinformation campaigns around the globe, usually in conjunction with our Department of Defense to help fight wars. We have an entire propaganda wing of the US government called the US Agency for Global Media, with multiple different media stations underneath it that utilize the internet, television, and radio to communicate these propaganda ideas and disinformation to other countries around the globe. The same counterinsurgency and disinformation.
I love how she's talking about the disinformation, but she doesn't explain how it works. And I feel like when you generalize it in this way, I think generalizing is harmful because that then overshadows where the truth versus the lies are. Because while it's not wrong that disinformation and misinformation, everything, like all of that are things that occur, it's not the only thing that's occurring. And it's like, fine, that's like, obviously, that's what she's talking about in the context of the imperialism boomerang because of that meaning. However, what I don't think she gets is how the imperialist boomerang is also happening like in America, where it comes to where she's talking about like all of the tanks and all of this shit. But when you look at how even despite the tanks and all of that shit, they still aren't stopping school shootings. So what the fuck is the point of the damn tank for, right? Um, when you look at how it all comes together, I feel like she's not able to fully communicate the way in which the Imperial Boomerang works. Because it's just like, obviously information is disinformation. It's all controlled by the fucking government. Like all um, of our media, all is controlled by monopolies. And so that's why TikTok is so popular, because TikTok is some of the biggest access you can get to opinions that you wouldn't normally be exposed to without otherwise Googling it and somehow getting into that space by a connection of a connection, or doing some form of research to get there on a journey eventually, versus where TikTok is like one of the first places that I've discovered where like I go to it, and in my For You page I'm going to be getting things and information from places where I don't even have to have been subscribed to it to see it. And that right there is part of, in my opinion, what's been able to like spread correct information and as well as perpetuate disinformation in some ways. But that's what's been able to impact information. There's always that. Um, I think when you want to articulate, though, like the particular impact of the Imperial Boomerang impact, though, if you just go because disinformation exists, that's not an actual explanation of it, though. Like, I would like have given more examples of the context of it. Maybe that's
Same counterinsurgency and disinformation techniques that the CIA used abroad during the Cold War were brought back to the United States and used domestically by the FBI in things like COINTELPRO.
So she will allude to things like the Cold War, but isn't actually talking about what happened with the Cold War. But the whole concept of the Cold War, one of the things that I feel like is interesting, though, is where history is repeating itself, is the facet of isolationism. Isolationism, we last saw that Cold War. Before that, we saw it between World War and World War II. Then we saw isolationism again around the Cold War time. And now we're seeing isolationism again, first with COVID. And can we argue it? Not really. I don't know. Because of the. But, like with COVID, we could see it again, right? But obviously, it's different context. Isolationism under the context of a pandemic is totally different than isolationism under the context of political ideology to not pay attention to what's happening with war. However, I do believe that the isolationism from the pandemic was used to also used to not have people paying attention to what was happening in other places, um, So it's like, yeah, these are good points, but there's ways in which it could be connected better. And I also don't, it's just like, how are you explaining this, but not understanding your own cycle of perpetuating it? You know what I'm saying?
Another example that comes to mind is when the United States allowed Milton Friedman to test out all of his hyper-capitalistic ideas about the economy in Chile. The United States had recently backed a coup against the democratically elected socialist leader Salvador Allende there, who set to work rapidly nationalizing industries to the heart.
You know what I don't get though? Every communist that I know will sit there and talk about why they don't like capitalism, but they're not able to sit there and actually critique communism. So, hmm. Because can you show me some shining examples of where communism has actually worked out in any country? And the argument people always give me is that's not real communism. And it's just like, actually, it is. It is real communism. That just like, that's like claiming this isn't real capitalism. It is real capitalism. You know what I mean? Like, on paper, any ideology is theoretically a good idea. There's nothing wrong with a free market, there's nothing wrong with equity, right? But when you look, it's the execution of humans in the theology and our social issues being mixed in which it becomes problematic. And that is in the context of our society rooted in colonialism, which is why we got to focus on a decolonized perspective to get away from it, which is why it's never going to happen under capitalism or communism. Human rights progress will never happen under either. Oh, I paused it on funny timing. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just her face. I don't know. Fuck. I didn't even fucking mean to do that shit, but oops. Yeah, you're right. That is kind of funny. I just noticed that. My bad.
Heartbreak, I'm going to say, of American businessmen. After the United States backed the coup, Augusto Pinochet was put in charge, who later went on to become a ruthless dictator. The United States allowed Milton Friedman and his school of Chicago boys, with their economic theory that involved mass amounts of privatization and deregulation, to...
So what I'm wondering if she like will just be like surface level interested in a lot of things, you know, narrow vibing, neurodivergent. Like she gets seems to be like superficially interested in a lot of things, but just not able to focus or have the attention on something in order to learn more than a certain amount about it. Instead, she knows a little, she might just know a little bit about a lot of things instead of knowing a lot about any one thing, is what I think could be from her. And that's me trying to give her the benefit of the doubt as to why would she advocate for the fucked up ideologies she does, you know?
to write the literal economic playbook for how the economy in Chile would be handled. The Chilean economy was cast in a downward spiral of destruction for years after that, and only rebounded, some scholars say.
Oh, and I also say that too because as y'all know, I do a lot of content production. I talk about a lot of shit, and sometimes people will be like, "Oh, you know not a lot about a lot," and I'm like, "Actually, I don't. What I know about certain topics is what I covered about it. I don't really know much more than that. You know what I mean? On certain things, I actually know way more than what I covered, like with marketing, sales, deafness. You know, specific topics. I can info dump all fucking day about that shit. But then when it comes to like the Supreme Court, I don't know shit about that shit. Fuck. All I know is what I covered. Goddamn. You know what I mean? Besides outside of my work experience in law, but you know, like so with certain things, like that's what I'm saying. Like that's why like people will be like, oh, you know a lot, but it's like now it's like maybe, but not to me. You know what I mean? Like to me, it seems superficial because I can only have time to understand so much about one thing, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a limited knowledge on something. It's just about how upfront with you are you on it? And if someone treats you as if you know more than you know, how do you respond? Do you correct them? Are you able to humble yourself to let them know, actually, I don't know that much about this? Or do you act like you know more than you do? Because to me, that's very telling. I also said, right, I feel like too much over the place, too much topic on this and that. I would focus on one topic. Right. I feel like if she focused on telling one topic in this story, it would be a better, like, she would have more content pieces, and each content piece would be better production. In my opinion, that's what I would like to see. Like, this is a good, like, this would be like a good summary for details. Without giving those details, for me, it's like, I think she just likes to, like, read the information but doesn't actually know about these people. And I used to, like, I still do, but I find it problematic that I do. I share a lot of things that I don't know fully about, and then I find out later I've got problems with the shit I talked about, and I didn't even know. Like, in this one video, I had stitched this deaf noodle video thing because it was related to deaf community, just like this whole thing. But I didn't know shit about deaf noodles. And so, like, fucking, I have him stitching one of my content pieces somewhere, and I didn't know how fucking problematic he was. Do I agree with that shit? Hell no. Do I wish I had researched him more before stitching his shit? Fuck yeah. Um, you know what I mean? Does that video still stand? Yeah. Yeah. But, things like that. Like, so for me, it's just like, there's sometimes maybe you should take an inventory of, hey, like, maybe I don't actually know enough about the things I'm speaking on, and maybe I should take some time to it's about being able to be flexible with it. You know what I mean?
Thanks to the fact that Pinochet had held out on privatizing one previously nationalized mine. Following that experiment with Friedman's School of Chicago Boys economists, we saw a period of rapid deregulation occur here in the United States, as well as privatization. What was tested in Chile was enacted here in the United States. I once met a man who was an organizer for the Democratic Party on an airplane ride. He asked me what my single greatest issue was as an American voter, and I told him foreign policy. He was so surprised to hear this, and he said, what about domestic policy? Aren't you concerned about things like abortion rights and the economy? And I said, sure, but all of that takes a backseat to American foreign policy. The conversation quickly devolved until
Right. And that, what you see, I don't know, on one level with decolonizing, it's all connected. So if you address oppression in one place, I do believe it can help to unravel oppression in other places. But when you're sitting there and you're saying that foreign policies are more important than the harm that people are facing here, I feel like that to me shows an extreme place of privilege to be able to say that. To me, that shows you're not actually impacted by the issues happening in America, by the genocide happening in America. Because when you're sitting there like, yeah, no, we can't worry about the genocide in America, there's genocide in other places. Um, mm, it's genocide in other places is more important than the indigenous genocide here. I don't like that. I really don't. All genocide matters. All genocide is important. Um, if you have a different reason for, like, foreign policy being more important to you because, like, you care deeply about how our relationships with other places are going to be impacted by what the government is doing to them. For example, something like that, I absolutely would have loved that type of sentiment. But when it's what's happening over there is more important than here, nothing is more important than the other. So is the indigenous genocide here not important to you? Because it's still happening. It's not over with. It's not done. We're still here. We're still resisting. We're still facing genocide. Do people not process this? Like, what? I don't know. That I don't like. Tribal sovereignty. If tribal sovereignty isn't the most important political issue to you, I don't like you. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the root of everything else. All of the other colonialism comes from taking away tribal sovereignty. We go back to tribal sovereignty. We go back to a decolonized perspective. Let's take out all of, you know what I'm saying? Ugh. Yeah.
Involved until he was yelling the R word, the SAR word, on an airplane so loudly that a flight attendant had to come tell him to be quiet. But
this is a very wild story too. For somebody, like, I'm not saying it's impossible for this to happen, but I'm just wondering what are the chances that somebody is going to 1 minute be like, so what politics matter to you? And then when you respond, oh, foreign affairs, go rape. You know what I mean? That itself seems very wild. So let's say on the off chance this did happen, I feel like that itself should show like maybe that person was potentially having some form of mental health crisis or something. Like that seems to be like, did this really happen that way? And if Madeline hadn't treated Kelp the way Madeline treated Kelp, I would just initially believe Madeline and just be like, oh wow, that's such a fucked up thing. Like people are wild. I can't believe that happened. Even if I don't like Madeline, right? Like, but it's the way Madeline was trying to make Kelp think that Kelp didn't know what was real. And it's the way Madeline was telling Kelp like, you've got complaining to the manager vibes when all Kelp was doing was trying to get customer service help for a shitty product from Madeline. When you put all of that into context of it, it's like, well, I've already seen Madeline treat someone like shit and gaslight them about what happened and then act like they said things they didn't say. So I'm having a hard time believing this happened, in my opinion. But that's just me.
eventually acquiesced that that was of no use to him as an organizer because Democrats and Republicans are the same on issues of foreign.
I don't understand why Madeline was laughing about that. Like, what was funny? What is funny about rape? What is funny about, like, ah ha ha, some guy is just yelling rape at me. It's so funny. I don't like that attitude about it either. Like, that's a very serious thing. It's not something you laugh about. Um, I just don't understand what's the joke or what's funny about, someone about this type of, you know what I mean? That's where I have a harder time taking it seriously. If she's not taking it seriously, how am I supposed to? And Denver, it's just like some guy disagreed with me on foreign policy, so he started screaming rape. That logic doesn't follow for me. So maybe that is such a wild thing that happened to her that's why she's laughing, because she's just like, can you believe that happened? But for me, something about the context of this story with everything I feel like I haven't fully processed the red flag, but I feel alarmed. I just do.
Foreign policy, which I respected him for at least admitting out loud. The reason why many people in the United States care so much about
And to say I would respect somebody for admitting that they for admitting their for foreign policy things, I don't know. Something about this is just ugh. So say he was actually against supporting like foreign affairs, or caring about foreign policy. Say like he was actually against that. Being like, I respect someone who can admit they're against foreign policy is also a weird statement to me. Like, I don't know.
American foreign policy is one, for ethical reasons we have a heart, but two, because we understand logistically, practically, these are the same issues that will come back to haunt us.
Who is we? What? And I love how this person's like, we have a heart, but yet you didn't have the heart to just give a customer a fucking refund without treating her like shit because she spoke out about how bad your business was. Yeah. And again, just because you're a business owner doesn't mean you're not a human being. Like, Like if Kelp didn't buy from her and Kelp was just like, I don't like this bitch, fuck her, and Madeline went off on her, I wouldn't be covering this, because just because you're a business owner doesn't mean you're not a human being. We're allowed to have our own fucking conflicts with people, and that doesn't necessarily impact how we run our business. But when this is what you're doing in a business transaction, that's when I'm like, oh no, fuck you. Like, that's not how you treat people in business transactions, and you're not going to convince me different on that.
Us here as citizens within the imperial core. What they feel comfortable doing to people in other countries is what they will feel comfortable doing to us. These are
Okay. So, I think it's just like really fucking funny because they actually like she's generalizing to us. You know what I'm saying? I don't think she realizes her privilege, because these things are already happening here. They just don't happen to Madeline because Madeline's not impacted by genocide. You know what I'm saying? Augusto said that he doesn't think that she's telling the whole story, but making her story for her audience to be on her side. Maybe, I don't know. I could see that. I could see that because it's just like, I feel like you're leaving parts out of the conversation, the laughter, the lack of ability to take it seriously. And there's just something so weird to me about the concept of being like, I told a man that foreign policy was more important than internal policy, so he screamed rape at me, and then I told him I respect him for that. It just feels so weird. Am I wrong? Like, that's what the fuck she just did. And it was, there's something that felt fake about it to me, that felt forced. But yeah, I don't know. It just, I need to process it more, but something about it feels really off.
are not many disparate issues, but one interconnected singular issue: the issue of Western capital. Western capital relies on both imperialism and a subservient, docile, domestic public. If you want,
So does communism. So why are you advocating for communism as if it doesn't do the same? You know what I'm saying? Capitalism and communism both rely on a docile public. They both rely on exploiting the masses. They're both colonizers, colonial concepts meant to uphold colonialism.
if you want to learn more about the Imperial Boomerang, I quite enjoyed this 5-part series on Verso books that you can find online.
Personally, though, I don't think you're going to understand decolonizing from white people. My issue with this source is
Let's talk
she's
about Imperial.
like, you're not gonna get anything. Who is it? Who is this written by? Connor Woodman. Yeah. I get he's Irish, but I feel like I'm gonna have to marinate on the criticisms on this one. You know what? We're gonna marinate and come back to this. But I just really feel like if you're asking people who, you know, are a part of contributing to colonial concepts to speak on decolonizing, all you're gonna get is them processing the ways they've upheld colonialism. So you're not getting decolonizing, you're just getting more colonialism. And that's what the issue is with Madeline. She doesn't have a decolonized perspective to connect to. And again, I think this brings back into context tribal sovereignty. So, even mixed white presenting people like me, we are on a weird area because I'm socially perceived as white, and therefore I have all of the benefits in some ways of white supremacy. But in other ways, because of my ancestry, I experienced, and because of my deafness and because of many other things, I experienced this particular form of genocide that not everybody else understands from my family lineage, from what we survived. So, where I'm at is even someone like me isn't someone who can build a platform off of decolonizing. I build mine off of business and my social issues and deafness, you know? And I do talk about my ancestry and my family because it's who I am. I don't deny who I am. I'm not going to whitewash my whole lineage. But my dad's side of the family, you know, um, that side of the family that has Powhatan ancestry. Powhatan. And so for us, when we talk about genocide, when we talk about human rights issues, when we talk about decolonizing, we're talking about our ancestral connection to our homeland. We're talking about community organizing. We're talking about putting in together sustainable systems in place for the environment, for all of us to have means of being able to support each other, for the production of food, for harvesting resources. There's just ways in which, when you're advocating for a communist perspective and you're trying to maintain colonial domination and colonial control over indigenous people, I'm never going to be like, yeah, you're a good person. Like, if you're not advocating for tribal sovereignty, I kind of just don't like you. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I don't like Madeline, because she's just advocating for more colonialism. And she's talking about how this is decolonized when it's literally also just colonialism. So it's like, if you're speaking about decolonizing, why don't you actually fucking decolonize? Why are you still maintaining colonialism? Why are you perpetuating racism, ableism, and anti-Semitism? So one person said, have you seen the people now pivoting to shitting on your clothing brand now? It's honestly insane how hard they're going. So I understand that I struggle with my own decolonizing language journey. Like, I use insane myself without thinking to or meaning to. And it's an ableist thing to say. We have to stop doing that. So this is ableism, in my opinion, right? And so let's see if Madeline calls that out. If Madeline comments on the ableism. If Madeline I don't think she's on a decolonizing anti-discrimination journey. And that does explain, you know, like, a lot about her. She doesn't seem to understand human rights issues. She doesn't seem to understand business. She doesn't understand politics. You know what I'm saying? But that's just my opinion, because, and that's me giving her the benefit of the doubt, because if she understands what she's speaking on, but she's pushing this narrative anyway, then she's willfully causing harm as a colonizer. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt to say, you know, because she's like brought into the colonial institution without understanding the decolonized perspective. This is all she knows, so it's what she's perpetuating. That's why I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. But if she does know better, she's researched this and she knows like, about Marx and Engles and all of that, then you know what, whatever. But anyway, so these are the pants, and people are saying, oh, it's shitting on your clothing, it's insane. Well, you don't think it's insane for her to lie? She literally claims that it's made in-house, but it's print-on-demand drop shipping. There's nothing wrong with print-on-demand drop shipping, but it's the way you lie about it and you're not upfront about it. You know what I'm saying? She does not clearly state print-on-demand drop shipping as she should be doing. And so to act like people are insane for, one, being like, bro, you should be upfront, and two, for the way she treated Kelp given the pants situation, you know, honestly, I feel like that's just gaslighting and dismissive. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I honestly don't even think Kelp went hard. The hardest Kelp went was showing the issues with the pants, discussing why the pants weren't working for Kelp, and then going over like all of the fucking screenshots and the tweets. Those were the main things. So how is sharing what Madeline said about going hard? You know what I mean? Like that's just me. But let's see what Madeline says. Let's see if Madeline takes accountability, and let's see if Madeline even addresses the ableism here.
That is not real life. But I think sometimes, even if we know that rationally, things we say on the internet subconsciously creep into our brains. I have the best example of this in my personal life. So I've run a business for 13 years. And once I personally started to get followers on TikTok, I started to see a lot of very intense critiques of the business pop up on this app. Like very intense. Like if you looked our business up on this app, you would think that every product we made was a horrible piece of shit that fell apart instantly. Our customer service was horrific, unhelpful, and abusive, and downright terrible.
So to me, that's not a good thing to be laughing or bragging about. That and that probably shows that these are valid complaints, and I'm gonna be more inclined to believe them based on seeing how Madeline treated Kelp. I don't think Madeline understands how to be accountable for her own actions, how to take responsibility, how to apologize, own up to her mistakes, admit when she's wrong, try to correct herself, and work to do better. I don't think she cares about human rights issues, in my opinion.
That everything incurred some sort of issue, some sort of error, was falling apart. Nobody was happy.
I get on a certain level you can't make everybody happy, but if in all of your reviews nobody is happy, that is a problem with you, not them. It's an issue with you.
Happy with their purchases, and everyone hated shopping there. This was really surprising to me when I started to see this kind of content on here, because I was like, what? We've never received feedback like this ever before in the however many years we've been in business.
That doesn't negate what their current issues are with you, though.
Before I was ever on this app. And even though I know rationally the internet is not real life, subconsciously I must.
The internet, though, actually is real life. I don't understand when people go, the internet is not real life. Yeah, actually it is. You know, on a certain level, yeah, there's AI, there's bots, and there's certain things where, that's definitely not real. That's some fake shit, right? But on another level, people will say that as a response to like not being accountable for what they're actually doing. You know what I mean? Like people will get on the internet and like they will like they will tell a joke, like they would joke about rape. They'll be like, wouldn't it be funny to rape somebody? And then you'll be like, no, that's fucking disgusting and disturbing. Why would you say that? And they'll be like, internet's not real life. It's a joke. I'm edgy. Get over it. You know what I mean? That's the context of which I see people use internet is not real life. I've never seen like what you say on our internet is you. It's very telling. It's you being who you are. People use the fact that it's the internet to say things and do things that they can't do or normally wouldn't do in real life because they would be afraid of getting in trouble for it, right? And so they'll go do it on the internet. It is real life. It's how people actually are. It's how people actually think. And so when we are excusing like not taking accountability because the internet is not real, that feels just like you're just like looking for a way to not have to own up to what you did, in my opinion.
Have interpreted all of this as being very real and serious, because I started to have like panic attacks about how horrible everything was going at the company.
Panic attacks, are very serious. I understand mental health is real. I have my own panic attacks. I have anxiety attacks. I've got somatic flashbacks. I know all kinds of shit. So that I get. I will say though, fucking it doesn't negate the valid criticisms people have with you. And just because people are complaining, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful in business. Those are just opportunities to do better, right? And so that's where it's just like when you're just like, I don't want to take those opportunities to do better. I'm going to act like people's opinions don't matter. That's fine, but then that's going to show where you're going to have this reduction in customer service. And eventually you're going to get to where your sales are going to plateau. Because if you maintain this mentality, you're not going to continue to generate new sales because you're going to burn out of people who don't want to be treated this way. You're only going to be stuck with the people who will put up with you because they want to suck your metaphorical dick. Um, you know what I'm saying? So, and then those are going to be the same people who you will, with some, you're going to get a lot of loyalty, and so you will maintain and build those relationships and continue those sales from them. But from others, you're going to eventually cap out on what they're going to buy from you because they're not going to be able to spend more with you. Um, but that's just my opinion as to, like, if it doesn't matter for human rights issues, for caring about how you treat people, then maybe you should consider your future sales. You will harm your business long term because it's like, it takes forever to build a business. Um, so yeah, I am very shocked though that she's been in business for 13 years but still doesn't understand the role of a CEO.
I was like, everything we're doing is wrong. All of our designs are falling apart. They don't fit anybody the way they like. Everything is awful. Everybody hates us. Our customer service is just so terrible.
So where it goes there, it's just like, well, in these stories, are you exaggerating? Or are you just talking about how you feel? Or is just what actually happened? You know what I'm saying? Because, like, a lot of people don't like her, but a lot of people do like her too, as we've seen. You know what I'm saying? So I know that she wasn't only getting hate because I always see her consistently getting a lot of support. And so it's just like, if I understand how maybe she has, some form of rejection, dysphoria or something where, like, like these types of like one rejection will like make her feel like shit about everything or something. But as a business owner, you have to be able to take customer feedback.
Can't do anything right. Holy shit, this needs to be fixed. So I set about on this campaign to gather data, because if you want to fix a problem, you have to identify the problem and see how bad it is. When I tell you I was shocked by the data that I pulled, okay, first of all, there are reviews that automatically go into the shop app for our company. I was expecting us to have like 2 stars out of 5 based on the way people were talking about us online. I was like, it's going to be terrible. I don't even want to.
Some people will post online if they don't like something, but they won't go bother to go leave a bad review. That doesn't negate the problem that they had when they made the post, though. So I don't really see how those two different things are related. Like, on one level, overall, you can get a general sense of how you're performing from your overall like reviews. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of metrics, improvement, whatever, blah blah blah. But like on another level, like, just because, like, if just because you get good reviews doesn't negate the bad reviews. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are still valid issues, right?
Look, 4.6 stars. 4.6 stars out of 5. And most of the bad reviews, as I read through them, were from a time when we used a third-party shipping service that was less organized than the shipping service we use today. In the past 30 days, do you know what our reviews have been? 4.8 stars. 4.8 stars. That is from confirmed customers receiving their items only. All right? That's it. That's the only way to leave her.
And it's, it's good for her that she does have the 4.8 stars. And if she wasn't using those reviews to excuse, like, not paying attention to the complaints people have about her business in terms of buying customers, paid customers, like, I wouldn't be sitting there like, okay, like, who cares? But it's just like, when she's like, yeah, I don't care about the complaints because other people like me, that's where I'm just like, I don't know. It's one thing, like, for me, for example, bringing it back to the police thing, I'm over here like, I don't give a fuck if people who want to suck the police officer's dick don't like me because I'm like, fuck the police. You know what I mean? I will happily not take their money. But I am intentionally aware that I am intentionally trying to exclude those people to be buyers. I don't want their money. I don't want them to be buyers. I don't want to associate with them. I don't fuck with them. Right? That's intentional. Versus this doesn't seem like if you want to it's different to intentionally tell people to intentionally want to get people to stay away from you because you don't align with them socially versus to where you're just like, yeah, I don't give a shit what paying customers think about what they paid for from me. That's where I'm like, oof, I don't like that. And it shows with how she treated.
Review. You order something, you got it, and then you leave a review. 4.8 stars. Shipping lead times, time it takes for something to get out. Industry standard is, I believe, 1 to 3 days. Ours, right now, currently running average, 2 days, 4 hours. And that's with our team only working a 4-day work week as full-time standard employment. Shipping error rates. This just means you get your order and something's missing, something was packed wrong, you got the wrong item, you missed a duplicate of something you ordered 2 of, whatever. Industry standard is 1 to 3%. That's the industry standard for shipping error rate.
Okay, so here's the thing though. All of this data doesn't act is not it's all of the data is good data to would be like in a separate content piece be good data to be like, well, here's what the industry average is and here's how we're exceeding industry average, which is why I feel confident about us, right? And here's the data points to show where we are working on ourselves as a business. Like if this was a different conversation piece where she's trying to show how she's working on herself, I think that would be really good. Or if she was able to articulate that, I think this would be like good data to back that up, right? But when she's just saying this without any context other than to claim that the people dismissing her, who have complaints about her clothes are wrong, it doesn't connect for me because it looks like you're kind of being like, who cares if people don't like me if other people do? And when you're talking broadly, I support the concept of you're not for everybody and you don't have to be. But when you're speaking on people being satisfied with your product as buyers, and making your customers happy and following through on your business transactions, that to me speaks to your ethics and your value alignment. And if you're being unethical in business, I just really question that. And that's, I don't know. I don't know.
Ours is 1.51%. Returning customer rate is on average 20 to 30% for e-commerce apparel. That's what we do. Ours last month, 65%. The month before, 59.9%.
So these stats back up my theory as to what I think is going to happen with the continuation of her business. I believe if she does not change, okay, here's what I think. One or two things could happen with her business. One, if she is able to ever actually have some self-awareness with what occurred, apologize for some of the things she's doing wrong here, try to make amends, and do better with taking accountability with her customers when she's not following through as a business owner on those business transactions. I think this could go into a way where, and then if she also educates herself on politics, if she educates herself on business, if she educates herself on human rights issues, if she learns how to support tribal sovereignty instead of trying to exploit issues that don't impact her for clout, then I think that I said clout, not child. What the fuck? Then I think she could have actually turned this bitch around and go in a really good way to where she can show, look, yeah, I started here because I didn't know better, but X, Y, and Z helped me see a different way. And now, because of one, two, three, I'm going to do these different things in my business procedures to make sure that if other people have issues, other people will step in to take care of it and we won't have this problem again. And I'm going to put in a procedure to listen to people who are more experienced on human rights issues to correct me when I am being harmful. Like if she were to put these types of things in place, like for me, what I do is when I'm speaking on human rights issues, I'll basically be like, look, say I'm talking about police brutality and I'm talking about specifically, police brutality can impact anybody really, but for me, in my lived experience, I see it impact Black people and Indigenous people the most. And so for me, if I'm speaking specifically, like say we're talking about George Floyd having passed, if I would have said something problematic, I would only be accepting feedback from Black community on that issue. And then when it comes to Indigenous issues, I only accept feedback from Indigenous people on that. If it comes to general racism, I will accept feedback on anyone that experiences racism. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, it's just like if you have that's my procedure for me, where like I will correct myself and do my best to adjust going forward when someone of a specific community points out to me where I'm going wrong. I will say my first response is typically to try and say thank you, and correct that and go forward, right? And so obviously there's a lot of things I've done wrong that I don't even fucking know about. I'm still problematic for it. It doesn't negate the harm I cause. Um, Things like that, right? Like you have to have your accountability procedure in place. And the first scandal that this came up with, so Kelp had originally spoke out about the pants situation almost a year ago now. I think like in January, February of 2024. Um, but then that didn't get much engagement at that time. But then recently, earlier this month, October, Madeline was getting called out regarding racism and particularly as it impacts people in that who impacting Black communities. So I don't want to speak on those issues, but that was just like the context of which the complaint came about. Like so, Kelp was just like, yeah, don't forget Madeline fucked my pants up, and all of that situation. So then Kelp was just like, yeah, while we're talking about her, let me bring this back up again because y'all got me fucked up. I was Kelp on that, man. Like, honestly. And it's like, because it's the way she builds her platform off of human rights issues while treating people like this. Because Kelp is what? In their early 20s? Probably a college student. It's okay if you're not in college. That's not everybody's path. Um, fucking but I'm just speaking like age wise, I'm assuming Kelp is like just graduated or is in college. And how old are you, Kelp? Fucking usually not everybody, a lot of people got that shit on their profile, so I'm like, oh, fucking 27. Oh, okay, I lied. Damn, you look young though. Got that good skin. Drop the skincare routine. Fucking my bad. Okay, so fucking I'm 30. But yeah, so Kelp isn't that young. My bad. Kelp is. I don't mean to infantilize you, Kelp. You're fucking 27. My bad. Oh, not that being in college is infantilizing. I'm just speaking as to like mindset. You know what I'm saying? But all right. So Kelp is a shelf. Kelp works in the fucking service industry. You know what I'm saying? So that's when 50% of people are broke as fuck. They're still making it, but they're in the lower income. And I'm assuming if you're a chef, you're probably in the lower income. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope Kelp is making more money than I'm assuming Kelp is. I've just been, I have had my own experience in the service industry, which is why I would assume you're not making enough. Um, so when the majority of Madeline's audience Wait, Augusto said, wait, you're 30? Not true, you look so young. Yeah, I am 30. I'm gonna be 31 on December 29th. So, thank you. I don't feel like I look that young. I feel like I'm aging, but I'm glad I am. It's good because it's interesting, but like, I guess the camera doesn't pick it up, but I got these wrinkles like right here. I'm getting wrinkles. I got this one prominent one like right here. Like I'm getting wrinkles and stuff, and my skin is aging. I can see it happening, but the camera doesn't always pick it up yet. Um, but yeah, fucking, I'm sure, sometimes it will in the selfie. Well, yeah, shit, what the fuck was I saying? My bad. Let's scroll up. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Kelp is in the service industry. So, fucking, I just have a hard time, I just feel like when you take into context the majority of the people that you're reaching, we're in the lower income bracket. And so to spend $100 on a pair of pants when you work in the service industry is actually like, I mean, it's not going to fucking break you, but it's still a big deal? Like, that's 2 or 3 dinners that Kelp could have taken Kelp out to instead. Augusto said, heck no, I'm 32, I already got back problems. See, you look young as fuck too, though. Like, I thought you were younger. I thought you were in your 20s. I didn't think you were in your 30s. Um, yeah, no, but I can feel you with the back problem. I'm getting knee problems, and I'm just like, I am too young for my knees to already be acting up. Like, come on, what the shit? Anyway, back to the topic. All right, let's keep reacting. I'm gonna finish this damn video.
We are double the high end of returning customer rate, double the average. Exchange or return rate, industry standard, you get.
Oh yeah, one more point though. That's why I paused. Like this is what I think backs up what I was assuming because I had said based on the way she treats people like Kelp. I think she's going to the majority of her customer base is going to become returning customers only because she's going to basically at a certain point there's only a certain number of people. Like you have a market, there is a cap to the amount of people in your market. There's a cap to the amount of people that you can reasonably service, the amount of clothes you can reasonably produce, there are limitations, right? And there's going to be a cap on how many people you can reach, how many people you can afford to reach with a given ad budget, and who's going to be buying from you. And then as well as the age range, and then in terms of the market for the type of clothing itself, and the niche, and the mentality, and the customer persona, there's a cap, a limit on how many people you're going to be able to market your offer to. So at a certain point, you're not going to reach new people. There's not going to be, until more people are born and they age into it, you're going to cap out on the amount of people you can reach at a certain threshold. So you're not going to be getting that much more new sales. So eventually, and she's at 13 years in business now, so who knows? It depends on the extent of her advertising, would pinpoint where she is on this journey, and I don't know for sure. But at a certain point, she keeps treating people like this. She's going to be losing customers because people like Kelp, they're not going to buy from her again because of the way she treated them so bad. And so, but then you have the people who are like, I don't care if you do that, I'll still love you no matter what. Those are the people who are going to keep her going. And because she's already got, what is it, 1 million followers? Let's see. It's almost 2 million. It's 1.7 million as of this video. Because she's got over 1 million people to market to, she is gonna have, unless a significant portion of those are bots, and I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying that would be what would have to happen for this not to be the case. Like she's gonna always have at a certain point be able to reach enough people to at least keep herself going, if not others, because she has a big enough audience size and fan base already She doesn't need to reach new people. Her existing customer base and keeping them loyal is all she needs to do to keep going. Now, I don't think that it is that itself necessarily is a I think in some ways it is a determining factor of success in terms of like successful customer loyalty and brand loyalty in this way does ensure that she can keep going no matter what the fuck she does. But in other ways, that's what she's using to not be accountable for her actions. But people support me, so I can do it anyway. That's what J.K. Rowling said when J.K. Rowling was called out for being transphobic. J.K. Rowling was like, well, people still buy my shit, so who cares? You know what I'm saying? And that's the route Madeline Pendleton is taking. All right, let's keep going. My bad.
Get something, you don't like it, you have to send it back for whatever reason. Standard is 20 to 30%, really high for e-commerce apparel. Its standard is 20 to 30%. Ours last month was 6.21%. Our average for the year, 6.68%. When I ran these numbers, the disconnect.
And here's another thing. I honestly, not to be treating people like they're fucking stupid, because I think a lot of people are way smarter than me on a lot of things and smarter than I'll ever be. But when I talk to people about business in this way and I start talking about customer retention, I start talking about customer retention rates, conversion rate optimization, search engine optimization. I start talking about the metrics of at what point what is our average order value, where are we converting people, how many visitors, and things like that. In my head, I'm excited about this shit because I know that I'm talking about how many people are coming in, how much are they buying, how many of those purchases come back, things like that. And so I'm really excited about it because I know we're talking about where the money flows, right? But whenever I meet new customers, or what I previously didn't understand and I had to learn to do in business was, and I still struggle with it, is not just regurgitating the data metrics, but explaining the story in a way to my clients in which they understand. Because when I talk like this to my clients, not all of them, because some of them, they know a good bit about marketing and they're like right on top of it. They know exactly what I don't need to sit there and explain what is an open rate in my email marketing to certain customers because they do email marketing themselves. I'm just there to assist them so they don't have to do it, but they know about it, right? Versus other people, they don't know the first thing about email marketing. They're like, what the fuck is an open rate? What's a click-through rate? And I have to explain, this is how we see how many people open your emails. This is how many people click on the email. She's not doing that when she's just rattling off a bunch of metrics and then being like, and we're great. She's not explaining to the people what this actually means for her business. You would have to already know or go Google it. And so I feel like a lot of people, they just look at her and they see her passion for herself and they're just like, oh my God, because they don't know what she's talking about, but they think she knows what she's talking about. They're like, you know so much because you're saying these words that I don't know what these words mean. But because they don't know what the words mean, they don't know enough to know if she knows what she's talking about. And I think the same thing happens when she talks about politics, in my opinion.
Connect between what was actually happening at the company versus the narrative that people were pushing online made me feel, one, so foolish because I know the internet is not real life, but it must have seeped into my brain because I thought this was.
I don't understand that where she's just like, what paying customers have to say about their purchases with me on social media does not matter because the data I decide to look at is the data that makes me feel good about myself. So therefore, people's complaints about me aren't real. Is kind of like where I'm getting from this, and I don't like it. And for me, that's where I'm just like, I don't see the accountability. I don't see the ability to connect your insights or your data to action items, to actionable um, things that you can fit, or to where you can look at to say, okay, this is why I don't have a problem. When you look at like saying, okay, well, if enough people want to buy from me, so it doesn't matter what the people who have an issue with me say, that is one mindset to have, but it's a type of mindset in which corruption is typically upheld, in my opinion.
A massive catastrophic issue. Also, secondhand, I felt very helpless because there's no way to combat that narrative. That's what people see. People see what's on the internet and they decide that's true and they run with it. And there's nothing you can do.
I do agree that people will just decide things are true and they don't know shit. Like, people tell me all the time I'm not deaf. There's 2 reviews on my Facebook page saying she's not deaf. Are you fucking kidding me? And it's just hearing people discriminating against me. So I do agree, like, on a certain level, people will just take things and run with it and it won't be true. And they won't have any evidence to show for it being true or not. But they will just do it to be harmful or because they're just shitty people. You know what I'm saying? So on a certain level, I get that. That is true. So if like, I'm not when I'm speaking explicitly to issues I have with her response, I'm speaking strictly to where it's an instance of a paying customer speaking out about her, um, as well as the way she avoids accountability when it comes to being called out on other human rights issues and discrimination, and rightfully so. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, I do think just because those things are happening and valid for me, though, I also agree that people online can be wild as shit. They can be saying some random ass shit and they'll just be shitting on you for no fucking reason, have never done business with you, and it's just like, yeah, fuck you guys. So that I get too, and I'm not negating that issue at all as a business owner. And I am saying now, like, I totally am like, if it was just about that and that only, I wouldn't be having these critiques. But it's where I see her not take accountability where I'm just like, oof. Anyway.
Other than be really transparent about those types of statistics.
Okay, but I don't understand where she's talking about how she's being transparent about her statistics, yet her website seems to market herself as someone who designs in-house and makes products from scratch. Yet I see a print-on-demand drop shipping supplier extension installed on her website. So to me, that does not feel transparent, in my opinion. And things like that are where I feel Madeline can be hypocritical. But that's just me.
Honestly say that getting this large of a following on the internet has exposed me to the absolute worst of people.
I think part of that is because Madeline markets herself in a mainstream way. She has pushed herself to be a mainstream commodity and to be palatable to the masses, in my opinion. She markets herself to cater in spaces in which racism and ableism and antisemitism are promoted. And so that comes with drawing the audience of that value alignment. And so it's just like when you push a white supremacist narrative, which communism is, and then you act surprised when you have social issues in your space. It's just kind of like, well, who would have thought? You know what I mean?
A rampant commitment to disinformation, to spreading lies, projection, and then the accusation that actually they're not spreading lies, you're spreading lies. The deep dives into personal histories, pulling up financial records, potentially doxing one of my friends.
Um, so I have mixed feelings about people doing deep dives into the backgrounds of people on businesses and stuff like that. I do agree that people can take it too far or whatever. Um, if Madeline were to make content, just calling out people that were going too far on things, but also still taking accountability for the harm she does cause in certain ways, then I would be fully in support of Madeline calling out the issues. I wouldn't be sitting there like, yeah, but, right? But the reason I'm like, yeah, but, is the context of this video being where it was made in context of actual valid complaints from paying customers on the product and actual people impacted by human rights issues, impacted by the discrimination in which they felt that like she was perpetuating, and I don't know, I just feel like there's a certain way in which she does not take accountability for herself. Um, and so when you're not taking accountability, but you're over here like acting like other people need to not look into you, well, if you were to be more transparent and own up to your shit, I don't think people would be looking into you. I think on a certain level, I don't agree with anyone doxing, in terms of like going after like her random associates or whatever. Like there's no need to do all of that. That's fucking creepy and crazy and loud if that's happening. And see, look, there's me being ableist right there. It's about catching yourself, sometimes that's how you start fixing it. You start by catching yourself, and then you notice one day, oh, I fixed it, right? But yeah, it's the way she uses the fact that there are wild people online to kind of brush over or act like the people with actual valid complaints are like those people. I don't know, in my opinion.
Who I helped buy a house for. The way people engage with each other on this app in particular.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the fact that she helped buy the house, which is why that friend got doxxed, if it was in her name was involved in any way, shape, or form. I don't feel like anyone should be going out of the way to look for or put out her address. I think that, when you're a business owner, your information gets public, and so that's normal. But yeah, so that's fucking creepy, but still, it's the way she is lumping it all together that I don't like. I wouldn't have a problem if she was just speaking out about the wild things that people do. It's the way she is lumping any criticism or complaint about her in with all of that that rubs me the wrong way.
And also on other apps, some apps are more toxic than others. YouTube used to be like this back in the day. It is so disingenuous and flawed. It is so bizarre and cruel and strange. It can get to you. Even if you think you have a good defense about it, even if you think the internet's not real life, it can get to you. For what?
I feel like maybe so that explains it. So she uses that. So I feel like it ends up as a result. It is she's not taking accountability for her behavior. Now I'm also wondering if she does that not only as a defense mechanism but a coping mechanism too. Because I do believe, the internet is so problematic that I do believe she could be exposed to problematic people trying to harm her intentionally, but I also believe she is using that narrative to treat the people who are trying to hold her accountable like shit based on what I've seen. But that's just my opinion. I think she is I think it's how she compartmentalizes in order to maintain her internet presence, because otherwise she would need to admit that she built her following, that her audience is a reflection of her, and if she admits that, then she's not gonna be able to like she can't admit that her audience is a reflection of her without then taking a fuller account of who she is as a person and what type of audience she cultivated. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion.
What? For what reason?
Now, on a certain level, just because you have an audience or whatever doesn't necessarily mean I don't mean that in a victim blamey way, like in terms of like, oh, if you have an audience, you don't deserve like your own privacy, for example. Like you look at the whole Chaperone situation. But what I mean is Chaperone, for example, she's gotten to an audience that's so big that none of them fucking respect her or value her autonomy. And the way it got there would be because she signed a record deal. And now she has to meet the contract, the specifications of that contract. And her audience grew from just outside of her control. It was no longer about her building that community anymore because she was no longer in control of it from the record deals and contracts she signed, in my opinion. Then it became however they market her is now the audience she's in with. So that's how it happened there, for example, right? And so here, Madeline's such journey where Madeline doesn't it didn't sign with other people to do that. The way it happened with Madeline, I believe, is based on her political ideology. I believe the problematic audience Madeline attracts is directly tied to her political ideology. And so this one comment said, these peoples would have canceled Engles, bro, I swear to God. Maybe they should have. So here's another letter. In this letter from Marx to Engles, it's saying, the first line, second paragraph says, the Jewish N-word, LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost, it says, another 5,000 tailors. So he's talking about the Jewish N-word happily leaving after losing, happy to leave, he's happy to see the Jewish N-word leave and that the Jewish N-word lost more money, is what Karl Marx is writing to Engels. And so this is the shit that Engels is good with. Engels sucks dick too. We should cancel both of them. Like, fuck them both. Actually, they're already canceled. They're dead. You know what I'm saying? You can't, can you cancel a dead person? They're canceled already. They fucking died. They're dead as shit. They're canceled as fuck. They canceled. They're already canceled. They've been canceled for hundreds of years. Well, like, yeah, is it hundreds? When did they die, actually? No, it's just 100, isn't it? It's like 150 years? I don't know. Who cares? But right here, this, you cannot convince me that this is not anti-Semitic and racist. You know what I'm saying? And when he says the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one, definitely racist, probably ableist too. The Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of this week, has happily lost, that is fucking racist. So these are the people who she's promoting, who she's advocating for, who she is saying, yeah, these are, like, you know what I'm saying? And everybody's acting like it's a bad thing to want to call this out or to cancel that. I don't feel comfortable. This is why I do not feel comfortable around communists. They're like Trump supporters. Communists act to Karl Marx like Trump supporters act to Trump. Like, communism and MAGA correlation needs to be studied. Um, but anyway, let's see what Madeline has to say about the racism of Karl Marx and Engels. My bad, apparently this thing was muted.
Sometimes people online get confused about why socialists and communists seem to be fighting with liberals more than they're fighting with conservatives. And the reality is that
the reality is, whether you're a liberal, whether you're a communist, whether you're a conservative, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, you are upholding colonialism over indigenous people. The only way not to do so would be to uphold and promote landback and respect tribal sovereignty. Anything else is colonialism.
socialists and communists view liberals and conservatives as two different parts of the same ideology, which is a neoliberal, capitalist, pro-imperialist ideology.
I love how you can understand that liberals and conservatives are two parts of the same ideology, but you don't understand how communism and capitalism are. This is just like how she doesn't understand the whole, like she speaks on things that she's doing. And I'm like, ugh, the call is coming from inside the house.
Ideology based on violence and bloodshed. The only difference between them is that a
So is communism.
conservative, as we think of them today in the American political landscape, or Republican, if you will approach a socialist or a communist and go, that's some commie bullshit. I hate you, I'm out, and leave. A liberal, though, will attempt to co-opt the language of liberation and use it as a way.
And communists do both. Communists try to co-opt decolonized language to uphold colonialism.
To uphold those same systems of oppression. This is why you end up seeing so much dialogue and so many conversations going back and forth between socialists and communists and liberals.
And communists are just like Republicans too, because they'll be like, you're a fucking capitalist bootlicker. Dude, yeah, communists are the same way. Communists are so...
Because liberals are attempting to weaponize the political ideology of socialists and communists to uphold their favored preferred system of government without actually understanding the ideology at all.
Similar to what socialists and communists do. They try to uphold colonialism without understanding decolonizing at all. I don't even know what the fuck I did. I just hit like a wrong fucking button.
People online get confused
God
about why
damn it.
socialists and communists...
I don't even know how far we were. Whatever. I'm gonna just play it from here.
And use it as a way to uphold those same systems of oppression. This is why you end up seeing so much dialogue and so many conversations going back and forth between socialists and communists and liberals. Because liberals are attempting to weaponize the political ideology of socialists and communists to uphold their favored preferred system of government without...
Okay, this is where we were. And that's what I was saying. This is what communists do. Communists weaponize decolonizing language in order to uphold and maintain colonial constructs and oppress the masses.
Actually understanding the ideology at all. And confusing and disjointed dialogue.
And it's like, that Madeline doesn't understand the ideology at all. So does Madeline, because, and that's me giving her the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying either she doesn't understand Karl Marx and Engles and hasn't actually educated herself on these issues, because that's much nicer and that's why she's spreading the racism and the antisemitism and the ableism, and why she doesn't understand the way she, you know what I'm saying? Or she intentionally knows about this and she agrees with it. Which one do you think it is? Either way, it shows why she's not someone you should be learning from, because she either is willfully trying to recruit people to a racist, ableist, anti-Semitic movement that is against native sovereignty, or she's extremely, extremely ignorant about every fucking thing she's talking on. And she just does it for views. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to you guys to decide which one you think that is. Like, is she intentional or is she ignorant? I don't know. Either way, I just don't see her as a valid source of information.
Dialogue comes from that. This is how you end up with liberals, for example, overusing the term or the idea of being a champagne socialist as a way to attempt to discredit communists or socialists who come from a place of relative economic stability.
Communists don't have economic stability. Like, what are you talking about? What the fuck do you mean economic stability from please name one communist country that exists today that's economically stable. I will wait. I will wait. And also, what is economically stable about an economic system in which people who are disabled and cannot work will never be able to earn and therefore are at a disparity compared to their peers. And then when you look at the situation, what is economically stable about an economic system that maintains control of resources in the hands of colonizers instead of giving back the control to tribal sovereignty? I don't understand.
Completely ignoring the relationship that Marx and Engels had, for example.
Okay, let's talk about this relationship. Remember when Karl Marx told Engels the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one? Remember when Marx told Engels the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of this week, was happily lost another 5,000 tailors in this ill-judged speculation. Did you examine this? Are you aware of this? Did you want to talk about this relationship? So if you know about this relationship, why would you support it? Or can you admit you don't really know shit?
Engels being the person besides Marx who was the most fundamental to the development of Marxist theory.
That's not a good thing. So you also agree that Engels stood by Marx saying that the N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one. Engels stood by Marx saying the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost money. So you're okay with Engels standing by Marx on these statements, and you're okay with communism being based off of this rhetoric. Okay. Are you? Are you really? Are you sure you're educated on this?
Completely ignoring the fact that part of Engels' perspective came from being the son of a rich textile manufacturer. And at various points in Marx's life, he was financially supported by Engels while he continued his work. Liberals will take a poorly interpreted misunderstanding of Marxist ideals and then attempt to call Marxists hypocritical.
Oh my God. So how is me reading Marx's words a poor interpretation of his ideas? This is literally what the man said. It came straight from the horse's mouth. Oh my fucking God. And then you're saying that I'm calling him, so, woo! Yeah, Karl Marx is hypocritical as shit. Anyone that stands by this statement is hypocritical as shit. So to gaslight me on that, to act like this isn't a big deal, like, why would you say that unless you knew something, in my opinion? Like, what statements are you saying that about? Like, ugh, disgusting. You know what I'm saying?
Critical for not adhering to that completely manufactured idea of what the standard of being a good Marxist is.
So you don't think that so you're saying that if someone is racist, if someone is anti-Semitic, and someone is ableist, that's totally fine because you're setting too high of standards of what a good person should be? Is that where she's going? She's either arguing that or she doesn't know. Do you not know, or are you supporting this?
Communism is when no iPhone. Communism is when not enough money to do mutual aid. Communism is when no savings account. These are facile and reductionist misunderstandings of what Marxism is. And this is why when you see liberals utilize these,
Yeah, at least she can admit that she's a reductionist misunderstanding of what communism is. That's a good interpretation of her reality and of what she offers to people. Because fucking she's literally over here promoting and advocating for a man who says that the common N word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one. She is promoting a man who says the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of this week, has happily lost another 5,000 tailors in an ill-judged speculation. The same way she talks about these people are the exact same way I see people talk about Trump and Vance. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
Kinds of ideas in an attempt to discredit Marxists, it does not land with other Marxists.
The fact that she doesn't think that it lands well with other Marxists to point out that Karl Marx and Engles were fucking racist as shit, to me, that shows how communism upholds white supremacy. You're not going to find much else inside of communism except for white supremacy. And the people who advocate strongest for it are people who are most likely, in my opinion, to excuse, normalize, and uphold discrimination. That's what communists are to me. But that's just my opinion.
Only serves as performance theater for other liberals to feel self-righteous and proud of themselves for maintaining an ideology of oppression, because they are able to say those Marxists don't have an ideology at all. They are hypocrites. Where if they spent even a day trying to read.
So when she's saying if they ever spent a day trying to read, does that mean that did you read this shit then? Or so you support this shit? So if you've actually read Karl Marx and Engels, wouldn't you be against the discrimination that they promote? Or do you not actually read them? So this is where she looks hypocritical, and so does they, and so does anyone that supports communism to me. I hate capitalists and I hate communists. Ugh, y'all disgust me.
Marx would know that it is not hypocritical to
I don't know what happened. My OBS got disconnected, then reconnected. My captioner stopped working. I don't know what was happening. But sorry if anything got cut out. Hopefully it's not too unfluid. Basically though, she was basically saying it's not hypocritical for people who came from money to talk about it. But what about it being hypocritical for these racist fucks to be talking about equity, meanwhile calling black people degenerates, calling them the N-word, meanwhile referring to a man as a Jewish N-word and then demeaning him for money. You know what I'm saying? And so when you talk about, oh, it's not hypocritical for him to have money, maybe it is, because you look right here, the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost another 5,000 tailors. And so when you have Karl Marx basically mocking what I believe may be a Jewish black man for losing money, and then being like, it's not hypocritical. Yeah, it is, actually. This is hypocritical as shit. And if you don't think otherwise, I think you have an extreme disconnect from reality or a lot of cognitive dissonance. Like, it is definitely relevant for someone to have privilege of white privilege and to have a bunch of money to be degrading people for not having money and for being black and for being Jewish. Yeah, that is hypocritical. And when Madeline's like, it's not hypocritical, you don't know what you're talking about, you haven't read enough. Like, have you? Because I am reading it. I'm reading the exact fucking shit they said to each other. Like, what the fuck? This is just like when people say that Madeline's messages are not problematic. I'm like, are we reading the same thing? Because what the fuck? But anyway, let's see what else.
And be a Marxist. Hence, some of these people would have canceled Engels. Yeah. Aside.
Dude, she's laughing about this as if it's a bad thing. They're racist, they're anti Semitic, they're ableist, they're extremely fucking problematic. When somebody is supporting this is just a red flag to me. So I need her to admit that she literally is very ignorant, literally doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about, and she's like gonna apologize for spreading this racism and this harm and for perpetuating colonialism. That would be great. Otherwise, it just leads me to believe she actually, like, does she actually believe this shit? Because she seems to be doubling down on it, standing 10 toes down on it.
Aside from the idea of champagne socialism, another idea that we see this happening with is the word tanky. Liberals have learned the word tanky, but divorced from all context without any real understanding of what this word means and where it came from and
I feel like Madeline is divorced from all context without any understanding of what communism means or where it came from or the political ideology surrounding it. So it's very, that's what it is. She acts like other people just don't know shit. Yet here she is, where she clearly, like, either she doesn't know shit or she is a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
why. It was a divisive word of communist infighting left over from decades ago. Now, liberals are attempting to use the word tanky to be anybody who's a Marxist-Leninist, while at the same time cherry-picking the words and phrases of revolutionaries who studied Marxist-Leninism, like the Black Panther Party, for example, and upholding those as somehow superior or more admirable, despite the fact that if those same people were saying that today, liberals would be calling them tankies. This is the kind of misunderstanding and lack of attention paid to the actual ideologies that they are critiquing that leads to so much.
Okay, this right here, she's talking about lack of attention to the actual ideology that she needs to be critiquing. Okay, that's how I feel about Madeline Pendleton when it comes to Madeline talking about communism. Madeline is pushing a narrative where you're supporting, this is just like, it's as bad as if you're supporting Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Talking about why everybody needs to be for Make America Great Again. You know? She's just as bad. And she's sitting here just like, you're talking about needing to critique liberal ideology or Republican or conservative ideology. Why don't you do the same thing to communism? You know what I'm saying? And look at this. You're supporting the idea that the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one? Are you really supporting the idea of the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost near 5,000 tailors in ill-judged speculation? Okay, so like, look at all of this shit. If you were to actually pay attention to Karl Marx and Engles, if you actually agree with it, I truly think you're a piece of shit. When I say I think she's ignorant as fuck and doesn't know what she's talking about, that's me giving her the benefit of the doubt. Because if she agrees with this shit, there's no debate to me about if she's a piece of shit. It's just that she is a piece of shit. But if she doesn't know what she's speaking on, then that's where I can give her some benefit of the doubt. Like, maybe she's really this uneducated. Maybe she doesn't research things. Maybe she doesn't just generally understand what she's speaking on when she talks. That's a more logical explanation, potentially.
Much discourse as we see it happening on the internet between socialist communists.
But even if she just is this ignorant, it doesn't excuse the harm she causes. She's still causing the same amount of harm.
And liberals, they are attempting to co-opt our language, our value system, and
what do you mean our language, our value system? I don't like that. Now you're co-opting things. So, for social movements, for human rights issues, the resistance really comes from primarily indigenous people, the Black community, and then to a point also outside of that are brothers and sisters who from other places as well that experience racism that moved here. So by that, what I mean is pre-colonial, um, indigenous people were the only people who were here before any form of colonialism. Then, as colonialism began with the trade slave, we had the slave trade. Did I say the trade slave? Slave trade. Oh my God. The slave trade we had, where this particularly impacted the Black community, to where the two initial groups here impacted were primarily Native and Black people beginning the human rights movements here, historically in America, in my opinion. So all social progress vernacular comes from Black and Indigenous community. Now, since then, we've also had, we've had our Asian friends and family over. We've had different people of different, Middle Eastern people, different people of different ethnicities and backgrounds come through, and they too have brought their social issues and movements with them as well. So I'm not negating their contributions as well to that vernacular too. Of course, that matters. I'm just speaking, if you look into the root of anti-discrimination language and decolonizing language, though, most of the terms and what were the ideas that have actually led to social progress, in my opinion, come from indigenous and Black communities, in my opinion. So if you're not of those communities to particularly speak on that, then you shouldn't be saying our language because it's not your language. You're the colonizer here. You know what I'm saying? So now you are whitewashing social justice language that's primarily used for people who are experiencing the impacts of white supremacy. You're experiencing the benefits of white supremacy. So that's what I don't like, when she talks about co-opting our language, or like as if she has ownership in the language. If you're not, from the Black indigenous community, I don't think you have much ownership over decolonizing language in quote unquote America for American history, in my opinion. Um, but that's just me. Like, I do know, for example, like Britain tried to take Hong Kong from China. I know like everywhere experiences colonialism. Like, look at the way Britain fucked up India and Pakistan, and look up the way like every Africa got fucked and shit. Like, when you look at all of this, I understand, like all of these communities are impacted and have brought forward decolonization as well with that. Um, but when we talk on our decolonizing language, I don't like seeing any, like, even me talking about it is problematic. Like, white people, we really shouldn't be over here like, oh, our language. You know what I mean? And again, I'm speaking from someone who is of a mixed heritage. Okay? All right. Letting that marinate, like, that's my mom, that's my dad, that's my stepmom, that's my dad, it's my dad, that's my pop, my dad's dad. So the reason this matters for me is like my dad, like growing up, if like if we get pulled over for the police with my dad is a very different experience if I get pulled over to the police with just my mom. Okay? There are things in which you don't understand if you don't live it. And I don't know how to articulate this better at this point. I'll try to come back to it. We're going to keep watching. But I just really wanted to reflect on this for a second. Like, part of decolonizing, part of social justice work is having some ability to be humble, and you don't need to be trying to take possession of decolonizing language because that's not your vocabulary. You had nothing to do with that. So, not ours. Decolonizing language has nothing to do with white people.
Use it against us to discredit us, but they are not doing a good job because they don't take the time to learn about our.
This is why I don't think Madeline does a good job. She doesn't take the time to learn about the things she's speaking on. So she speaks from a very superficial level without understanding the nuances of the issue. The same way where she is promoting and sucking dick for Engles and for Marx, but she's totally excusing the fucked up things they say. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Our value systems and our ideologies. They don't know, for example, that tanky is not an insult to any socialist or communist. They don't know that all the people they profess to be their heroes of radical tradition today, they would have called tankies just 50 years ago.
And this is another thing where I'm just like, okay, well, why can't you have the same type of criticism for communism? You know what I'm saying? You need to understand you're just upholding a colonizer's perspective on how to oppress people. And it's like white people, they will fight harder to justify upholding racism and anti-Semitism and colonialism and maintaining power in the hands of colonizers instead of advocating for tribal sovereignty, while using Palestine to promote themselves. You know what I'm saying? That's what I don't like. Like, think critically.
And they don't know it yet, but when our generation of socialists and communists are long dead and gone, the next generation.
I'm hoping the next generation is self aware enough to criticize Karl Marx and Engels and not be communists. I hope the next generation cares more about landback and tribal sovereignty than holding on to colonialism.
Of liberals will cherry pick our words and our movements to uphold as some pillar of good liberal thought, while discounting our belief systems and lobbing them as.
And another thing I don't like, where she acts like, oh, communism, all good, liberal, all bad, Republican, all bad. My thing is, Republicans, liberals, communists, all of that, it's not, it's, they're only all bad in terms of they all uphold colonialism and they're all bad for the constructs they grew up in. They're all equally as bad as each other, though. Where they try to act like one of them isn't as bad as the other is what gets me. I'm like, do you not understand that you're all the exact same?
Insults against the next generation of socialists and communists, completely misunderstanding their ideologies as well. These insults don't end up landing. They don't end up.
Here's another thing though, like, so because Madeline Pendleton does not actually understand communism or socialism, I think it's hilarious she keeps talking about they don't understand communism and socialism like I do. So, are you telling me that you agree that the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one, and that you agree with Karl Marx and Engels saying the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has probably lost another 5,000 tailors in ill-judged speculation? Are you telling me you agree with that, or are you like what? So you support this? I don't understand. What? Ugh.
Being effective, even rhetorically, because they are not actually based in or rooted in our true ideologies.
And where she's talking about how liberals are impacted by communism because they're not rooted in ideology. Like, what? All human beings have the capacity to be impacted by communism. Like, what are you, and understand it, huh? Um, a liberal criticizing you doesn't mean they don't understand it. It means there's shit to criticize. Liberals, communists, conservatives, you're all the same. You're just upholding colonialism. You're just trying to advocate for maintaining power in the hands of colonizers, and you're just maintaining discrimination and disparity. I don't understand that. What? And then what did she say? Something else she said bothered me. Hold on, let me rewind.
And when liberals miss communists, completely misunderstanding their ideologies as well. These insults don't end up landing. They don't end up being effective, even rhetorically, because they are not actually based.
Oh, yeah. So that's another thing. I feel like So, Madeline, you could say, Madeline, it's racist as hell to say the common N-word type is only the generation of a much higher one. And Madeline isn't going to be like, wow, let's not be racist anymore. Madeline's going to be like, stop insulting me because this is what I see from her. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the ideology they promote, this is what they advocate for. Always remember that. This is what it's based off on.
Based in or rooted in our true ideologies. And when liberals misuse these ideas, it just gives us secondhand embarrassment.
Shouldn't you be embarrassed just for thinking that anything like this about the N word? Shouldn't you be embarrassed for thinking that it's okay to agree that the common N word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one? Shouldn't you be embarrassed to agree with Karl Marx saying the Jewish N word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, is happily lost another 5,000 tailors in ill-judged speculation? Or is reading what Karl Marx said directly himself to Engles misinterpreting what he said and hypocritical?
It doesn't make us ashamed of ourselves. Because
And the fact where people who are communists are like, the fact that we're racist doesn't make us ashamed. Yeah, I see that. I see that. It's a problem for.
we haven't done anything wrong.
That's where I say she doesn't take accountability. She either literally doesn't think this is wrong, she doesn't, or she doesn't know a goddamn thing about what she's speaking on. I don't know which it is. It's up for you to decide for yourself if you think she's just extremely uninformed or extremely hateful. Up to you. I do think she can be very malicious. She was malicious as hell to Kelp, in my opinion.
It's 2024 if you are still using the term tanky to describe somebody because they are critical of American imperialism, you're not doing what you think you're doing.
It's 2024. If you think that it's okay to say that the common N-word type is only a degeneration of a much higher one, and that the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost another 5,000 tailors in ill-judged speculation, if you don't think that these things are racist, ableist, or anti-Semitic, then maybe that you and I aren't going to ever have value alignment. Maybe you're not actually criticizing imperialism, but you're upholding it. Maybe you're the colonizer. Maybe you're the problem. Just letting that marinate. Letting that marinate. So this is why, like, okay, let's finish it. We got 14 more seconds.
And likewise, if you were saying somebody can't be a socialist or a communist because they have enough money to help their friends, or because they own their house, or because they are saving for their retirement, all you're doing is proving how little you understand about socialism.
Socialism and communism is based on upholding and maintaining disparity. So, yeah. And for me, I don't judge people for being born with more money than others because you can't help what you're born into. But I do judge if you are well off financially and you and your friend are over here saying the Jewish N-word LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost another 5,000 tailors in an ill-judged speculation, and you have money. You're calling someone a Jewish N-word and then degrading them for losing money. That itself is imperialistic as shit. That's colonial. That's oppressive. That's upholding disparity and inequity. That's what communism is based on. You know what I'm saying? So people who act like communism is this magical answer to society, that's how you know this is a person who is not well informed, doesn't educate themselves on social issues, and may not care about human rights issues, in my opinion. These are typically people who have no connection to a decolonized society. They don't engage in indigenous spaces. They don't engage in black spaces. They don't typically engage in any space in which you're going to understand um, being taught how not to cause harm based on oppression. So, fucking, my thinking here is I feel like she's looking for, um, I feel like she's possibly looking for some type of way to feel better about herself or to feel grounded in reality because, she doesn't seem to be educated on business, but she is expected to run a business she doesn't seem to be able to maintain. Um, she has made herself out to be a thought leader on politics and communism, but and she makes herself out to be a thought leader on human rights, but she either doesn't know enough about communism to criticize the racism, the anti-Semitism, and the ableism it's based on, or she agrees with it and supports it, in my opinion. So for me, it kind of shows where she is very comfortable building her business off of things in which she has no experience or lived understanding of, in my opinion. But that's just me. I know you're welcome to think what you think. I don't, I don't want to. I've already talked before from the goal of community organizing, from the goal of mentorship, and things like that. Like, why is it important? When you reflect on how she treated people, like, why is it important to have a mentor and to have guidance? Um, let's see. There was something else. Oh, yes. So in my video, the first Neil Gorsuch urged to recuse over Philip Anschutz case video I did, I will link that in the description of this video. I'm going to add this now. I had done a little live stream. In my introduction, I had rambled about some other things I processed regarding Madeline Pendleton when it comes to community organizing. I just added that link in the description of the video. I highly recommend checking that out because I specifically discuss why I think, oh, sorry, my captioner went down. Um, Let me just scroll up. Okay, in case anyone needed to pause for that. So in the description of the video, I just linked in this other video I had done about Neil Gorsuch and the Supreme Court, being where he was urged to recuse. At the introduction of that video, I talk about Madeline Pendleton and community organizing and some of the thoughts that I had that I didn't get to. Um, let's see. Yeah, I have a bunch of these like random papers everywhere where I just have like my notes. I should be more organized. Life is hard. Oh, found it. Is this it? Yes. So I talked about how mentorship, you know what? I'm gonna just reread this shit. I had read that before and I'm gonna read it again. Fuck it. So I talked about how mentorship helps articulate and define what we are currently experiencing but haven't processed yet. It's individualistic to be a thought leader on progress without community organizing. And in looking for community from not accepting the world as it is, I believe that Madeline Pendleton has turned to trying to lead others without ever having guidance or teachings. And that is why she's not able to do well, because she's figuring it out as she goes and she hasn't had other people show her how to do it in a value aligned way. She doesn't seem to, because it's either that or it's just like she agrees with what she's doing and she's just that unethical. So it's up to you to decide. You can either, I feel like if you don't think she's either ignorant or unethical, you and I probably just don't get along. Um, like if you don't think she's doing anything wrong with any of this, with business or with promoting colonialism, you and I probably won't get along. But when it comes to fucking like, I just can't decide if is she this ignorant or is she this malicious. Um, And there are moments where I watch her videos, I can see how tightly clenched her jaw is. And the reason I notice it is because I know when I'm that way, I myself can be that way. But I can't tell with her, like, is she literally just this angry in her content production? Or is that from anxiety and stress? Or is that a combination? Um, on the some levels, I don't think you should have to be more mentally stable before you engage in something, because like just because you're mentally unstable doesn't mean you don't deserve to have take space somewhere. But when it comes to how you're responding to your business and to customers and to people who are paying to work with you, I think if you do find you're in a mentally in a space where you don't feel mentally stable, if I can, I always try to not work. And I always try to come back to the topic when I feel more mentally stable. And I understand sometimes you don't have a choice, you have to try and do it. But I would follow that advice. Like if you don't feel good energy in work, don't come back to it until you feel good energy with it, because it's better to not put bad energy into something than to um, be putting the wrong energy in the wrong places. That's just my opinion. But yeah, fucking. So I'm gonna wrap this bitch up. And just to recap, though, we've talked about a lot today. Um, So we went over the entire updates with the Madeline situation in terms of how her fans, in my opinion, were still gaslighting Kelp. I felt like Madeline was still gaslighting Kelp. Um, and then we saw where Madeline eventually blocked Kelp, which, you know what, is probably for the best. I just think that is interesting. Uh, like, just in context of how it was Madeline treating Kelp like shit, and then trying to make Kelp feel bad for existing or having ever tried to do business with Madeline. Like it's just ugh. Anyway, we went over the redacted Sedex members ethical trade auditing report or whatever. And then we talked about the print on demand drop shipping. We reacted to a few of Madeline's posts, so we got a bigger understanding there of the social issues. And linked in the description of this video are my sources on Karl Marx as well. And so, yeah, I'm just going to leave you with recapping the 4 things that I brought up at the beginning of this live stream. Again, I want to reiterate the reasons that I think that communism is just as harmful as capitalism is where it comes to landback. When you're arguing for from private to public control, you're still arguing to maintain the means of production in the hands of colonizers. And for me, it doesn't respect tribal sovereignty. And so we need to focus on land back and tribal sovereignty instead. It stays with a production-based economy, so you're still assigning arbitrary value to production where you must work to earn, and where the same people exist, so the policy isn't going to change the people, and so you're still going to have these same social issues. The ideology, we are having these racist fucks who are anti-Semitic and ableist as well, being the basis for all of this. So obviously that's where the intent is when it comes to the execution of these policies, as well as the colonial concepts of how we're pushing maintaining colonialism over decolonizing whenever we argue to uphold a colonizer's perspective over indigenous places instead of advocating for tribal sovereignty. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those are my issues with Madeline Pendleton. I'm hoping that she starts a decolonizing journey and starts to work on like learning about business and understanding how to be more ethical as a business person and caring about human rights issues and social issues. I think it would be great when she does get on an anti-discrimination journey. If she does, I think she has the ability to do a lot of good in the world because she does have the ability to really influence people, to motivate people, to get people to act on things. So that's why she's problematic, and it's what can make her better if she works on herself. If she goes down the route where she's going down, if she keeps on this route she's on, she's just gonna be just as another Trump type bad person, you know? She's just as like Trump, no different. But if she actually works on herself, actually cares about human rights issues, actually takes into consideration value alignment, who knows, you know, she might be able to take it on a different route. She might be able to be somebody who you could learn from, and actually trust that they researched what they said and that they're not pushing a narrative based on oppression, colonialism, and discrimination like Madeline does. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. I'm hoping she works on herself. I think she does have the ability to do better. I really do, but I don't think she is being ethical at this time, in my opinion, based on what we've covered in the playlist up to this point. So yeah, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you. It's been a long one. I feel like this plane is crashing, and I feel like I said that this might be the last video for now, but in my head I also feel like I haven't fully processed certain things that I've now been thinking about in this live stream. So I might actually, if I feel like I better process this information in a better way, I might try to do another live stream about it all. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? I don't know. But maybe I won't. If I process more, I'll cover more, but I won't keep covering it just to talk about the same shit intentionally. Though I do kind of spiral and I keep getting repetitive, and it's like, bitch, get out the spiral. Come on. So we'll see. I'll try. We'll do our best. I don't know what'll happen. Who knows? Anyway, next up, I do have more Rayleigh Kaze content on the way again. Oops. So that's coming up, as well as additional Kaze content, just general, like, shit in relation to that. So yeah, stay tuned. I appreciate you. Also, mark your calendar because around December 10th, we've got that court date happening with Neil Gorsuch. I will be covering that. So yeah, stay tuned. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate you. Oh, you know what? I just realized I never fucking did my ad spots today. God damn. Alright, well, real quick before I close out, today's live stream is brought to you first by Ink by Cass Tattoo. Ink by Cass is a tattoo artist near Houston, Texas, around Pasadena, Texas. If you're around there, definitely go get a tattoo. Check this out. As well as Monkey New Orleans Coffee Shop. If you're in New Orleans, come get some coffee from my twin sister. Check this shit out. Alright, y'all. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you, and bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.